Chapter 748. Even if there was no earth-shaking and earth-shattering scene in the fight between real powerhouses, it still made people's hearts tremble inexplicably. The majestic momentum, the murderous blade lights and sword shadows, the bloody rain, and the foul wind made even the experts of the everlasting feast hall slightly change their expressions. They're so strong. Jinlei Duomo watched the scene of Wisdom War Elder Wu Jie, Keith Moore, and the others fighting in midair. The shock inside her was like a surging tide. She thought that she was already very strong, but she didn't expect that there would be such a big gap between her and these powerhouses from the Stygian Club and Pyramid. Suddenly, Jinlei Duomo's eyes moved away from the fight and landed on Tan Xiu's indifferent expression. She hesitantly asked, "Mr. Tang, I know that you're stronger than me, but compared to them, who's stronger and who's weaker? I may not be as good as them if it's a friendly match," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "But if it's a desperate fight, their chance of survival will be less than 1%. Jinlei Duomo shuddered inwardly. She didn't think that Tan Xiu was just talking nonsense. Facing such a bloody and crazy fight at this moment, where there was a possibility of fighting at any time, bragging was tantamount to courting death. Tan Xiu glanced at Jinlei Duomo and then shifted his gaze back to the fight. Along with the crazy fight ahead, the ordinary humans had already left the battlefield. Many of them didn't know that vampires and ability users existed in this world. Facing these legendary and terrifying monsters, they didn't even have the thought to pull the trigger of their guns. Huh! Tan Xiu's expression suddenly changed as he watched the fight. In the air a few kilometers away from them, Wu Jie and Bodit were both injured, but their combat strength was still very strong. But Keith Moore and his subordinates were different. Except for the two vampires, Basil and Ality, the other two had died in battle. What made Tan Xiu's expression change was that the three vampires, Keith Moore, Basil and Ality, who were in a disadvantageous position, desperately pushed back Wu Jie and Bodit and then rushed towards his direction. Tan Xiu's eyes were like torches. He could even clearly determine where Keith Moore and the other two had landed. They were in the vicinity of the concealment array. Once Wu Jie and Bodit caught up to them and started fighting in the vicinity, the concealment formation would be affected and they would be exposed. "Ah Wu, give me a mask," Tan Xiu said in a deep voice. Mo quickly took out two bronze masks from his space ring and handed one to Tan Xiu before quickly putting one on himself. Jin Shi and the others also grabbed the bronze masks they carried with them and quickly put them on. Only Jinlei Duomo looked at Tan Xiu and the others in confusion. She wanted to say something but hesitated. Tan Xiu said, "Give one to Jinlei Duomo." "All right." Mo glared at Jinlei Duomo, but in the end he still took out one and gave it to her. Wintide, dressed in a green robe and holding a red crystal stick in his hand, Bodit frantically waved his crystal stick. As he rapidly chased after them, he constantly slashed out wind blades. The entire world in front of him was filled with hundreds and thousands of wind blades as he chased after the afterimages left behind by Keith Moore and the other two. When a large number of trees on the hillside were ravaged by the wind blades and fell to the ground, Keith Moore, Basil, and Ality were already less than 100 meters away from the concealment array where Tan Xiu and the others were hiding. "Our targets are the two vampires who had previously fled." Tan Xiu instantly unleashed his long sword. As the other party was getting closer, his figure instantly disappeared and directly appeared in front of Keith Moore. The violent sword slash was as though it could tear the space barrier apart. Energy swarmed in from all directions, forming a terrifying killing move. What? Keith Moore's complexion drastically changed. Never once did he expect that there would be an ambush in front of him. What made him most afraid was that the other party seemed to have appeared out of thin air without any warning. Swoosh! The sword light swept across and cut off one of Keith Moore's wings in an instant. Along with his painful howl, two sword lights appeared out of thin air and pierced through his abdomen and waist before sinking into Basil's and Ality's chests. Ality and Basil were both injured and caught off guard by the sneak attack. Even though the attack had avoided their hearts, it left two hideous bloody wounds on their bodies. At this moment, Basil and Ality, the two natives' vampires, felt as if they had just survived a disaster. Just as they were about to muster all their strength to escape from this place, another 8 flying swords came shooting at them. Puff, puff, the 8 flying swords pierced through their bodies, causing blood to blossom. In despair, Basil and Alidy's bodies fell down. The moment they hit the ground, they died completely because their cores were shattered. Tang Xiu didn't pay attention to Basil and Alidy, but appeared next to Keith more like a shadow. As he cast a seal, wind, thunder, and lightning flashed, forming a terrifying scene that instantly enveloped Keith Moore. The long sword flying next to Tan Xiu instantly pierced Keith Moore's head. Boom! The moment Keith Moore was seriously injured, Tan Xiu fiercely punched his chest. Although the powerful force didn't shatter his core, it still sent him flying upside down. Chop! The long sword slashed down, piercing Keith Moore's heart from his left shoulder and even splitting his right leg in half. 4 to 5 seconds passed. It only took 4 to 5 seconds for Tan Xiu and the others to appear from the concealment array to the assassination. However, Keith Moore, who was extremely powerful and had a very high status in the Stygian Club, and his 2 men, Basil and Alidy, were killed. Who are you? Wu Jie trod on the void, surrounded by raging flames. He spread his arms to stop the pursuing pyramid experts behind him and glared at Tan Xiu and the others as he shouted. Tan Xiu sneered. After gathering with Mo and the others, he glared at Wu Jie and said, "You actually dare to ask who we are after causing trouble in my Huaxia's territory? To think that you're hailed as the pyramid's wisdom war elder. I think you're just stupid." Huaxia? Cultivators? Wu Jie's body trembled. He instantly raised the golden scepter and said in a deep voice, "You killed the Stygian Club's people. It has nothing to do with our pyramid. There's an old adage that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Let's join hands to destroy all the Stygian Club's experts on Mist Source Island. We can be considered friends, right? We can be friends if your pyramid's people immediately leave Mist Source Island," Tan Xiu sneered. "But if you continue to covet the resources of Mist Source Island and want to invade our territory, then you're our enemy." "You mean, you want to represent the Huaxia government?" Wu Jie frowned. "We're the Huaxia government's people, so we can naturally represent them," Tan Xiu replied coldly. "Mist Source Island is Huaxia's territory, a territory we haven't opened to the outside world. You trespassing here is tantamount to trespassing our territory. Hence, I'm giving you a chance to leave. But if you still want to stay here, you won't end up better than the Stygian Club's people." At Wu Jie's side, Bodit's eyes gleamed with dense killing intent. Before Wu Jie could speak, he had already pounced toward Tan Xiu. "You're courting death." Mo and the others rushed out and controlled their flying swords to fight Bodit. Tan Xiu waved his hand and threw out 24 array discs. As his hands drew in the air, the Star Brilliance Array was arranged in just a few breaths. Along with the instantaneous activation, Wu Jie's expression drastically changed and he flashed back 100 meters. Fortunately, he was able to escape the Star Brilliance Array the moment it was activated, while Bodit directly appeared inside the array. "Retreat! I'm going to kill him!" Tan Xiu's figure moved and appeared at the array's eye as he shouted aloud. In a flash, Mo and the others could clearly hear Tan Xiu's voice transmission to them, pointing them to the direction to leave the Star Brilliance Array. As they left the Star Brilliance Array, Tan Xiu manipulated the array to make the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise appear out of thin air and surrounded Bodit from 4 directions. "Kill him!" Following Tan Xiu's order, the 4 divine beasts unleashed their respective supernatural abilities and constantly launched fierce attacks at Bodit. Bodit's strength was very formidable, and he was even stronger than Tang Xiu in his heyday. However, the Star Brilliance Array that Tan Xiu had set up was based on the principles of the 24 Constellations Array diagram. Moreover, he had added a lot of Tan Xiu's own understanding of array formations, making the Star Brilliance Array even more powerful. Just the Star Brilliance Array alone was enough to bring Bodit great danger. Coupled with Tan Xiu's control, Bodit was surrounded by perils for a while and almost lost his life at the hands of the 4 divine beasts several times. 100 meters away, Wu Jie looked at the void in front of him with a face full of fear. He could feel a huge amount of energy constantly being drawn from all directions and eventually forming a special space. He stood outside but could not see anything inside. There was no Tan Xiao or Bodit. Wu Jie knew that Tan Xiao must have used some kind of method to trap Bodit inside. It was even very likely that Bodit was under great threat at this moment. Wu Jie pondered for a while and suddenly said, "Little friend, how about we talk?" Inside the Star Brilliance Array, Tan Xiao's face suddenly turned cold when he heard the word little friend. Almost in an instant, the surging primal chaos force in his body poured out. In just a few breaths, the 4 divine beasts' bodies nearly doubled in size and the power of the Star Brilliance Array multiplied. Bodit narrowly avoided the Azure Dragon's sweeping tail, but the White Tiger's sharp claws tore open a bloody wound on his back. Before the crisis was over, the Vermilion Bird's flames burned his body, and the Black Tortoise slammed its head into Bodit's chest, causing his sternum to be smashed. Die! Tan Xiao's figure instantly disappeared from the eye of the array. When the long sword turned into a stream of light and pierced through Bodit's chest, Tan Xiao's figure appeared in front of Bodit. He did not give him a chance to dodge and punched him in the head. Blood splattered. A one-hit kill. Brothers and sisters, please support us with your monthly votes. Chapter 749. Buzz. A strange melody instantly spread and a hazy figure appeared outside the Star Brilliance Great Array out of thin air. Tang Xiao grabbed Bodit's head and appeared in front of Wu Jie with a murderous aura. Bodit! Wu Jie was horrified and involuntarily exclaimed. He never dreamed that Bodit would be killed in such a short time. An array? The legendary array that cultivators from the Middle East are good at? Wu Jie recalled the records he had read in the ancient books and his heart suddenly twitched a few times. Although they had explored some mineral resources in Mist Source Island this time, they didn't excavate them at all. They had just planned to take root in Mist Source Island and set up a secret base for the pyramid, yet they had suffered such a huge loss before they could even start to implement it. We've lost everything and suffered heavy losses. Although Wu Jie was full of unwillingness, he was perfectly aware that his plan to lead the team to Mist Source Island would most likely fail. Tan Xiao looked at Wu Jie's constantly changing expression and said in a deep voice, "You're lucky to be able to escape from my array, War Elder Wu Jie. But I can tell you that luck only comes once. If you insist on having your way and still want to stay on Mist Source Island, then this Mist Source Island will be your burial ground." Wu Jie hated Tan Xiao because Bodit was his closest companion. Now that he died in Tan Xiao's hands, this blood feud must be avenged. However, he was also well aware of one thing. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. As long as there's life, there's hope. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge 10 years later. In an instant. "Give me Bodit's body and I'll immediately leave Mist Source Island with my men," said Wu Jie in a deep voice. "Understood." Tan Xiao happily returned Bodit's body to Wu Jie and personally led his men to follow Wu Jie and the others to evacuate. Just as they left the white mist area, Tan Xiao coldly snorted and said, "Keep in mind that I won't welcome your people from the pyramid in the future. Kill one if you find one, and kill two if you find two." "May I know your name, mister?" asked Wu Jie in a deep voice. Tan Xiao sneered and said, "You're not qualified to know my name. If the people of the pyramid obediently stay in your hometown, I might not take the initiative to find trouble with you. Otherwise, I don't mind bringing some people to your place." Wu Jie said grimly, "See you later." Finished. He quickly boarded a passenger ship with the people from the pyramid and soon disappeared into the distant sea. Tan Xiao turned his head to look at Moo and said, "Take some men to clean up the people from the other forces on Mist Source Island. Remember, don't leave anyone alive and kill them all. Zhenlei Duomo, cooperate with Ao and the others. We must solve these problems as soon as possible." Zhenlei Duomo quickly said, "Mr. Tang, isn't it too crazy to kill all the people from the other forces on Mist Source Island? You should know that those forces are not to be underestimated." But Tan Xiao raised his hand to interrupt Zhenlei Duomo and coldly snorted, "Since I dared to kill them, I'm not afraid of their revenge. Do as I say." Zhenlei Duomo was silent for a moment and then nodded helplessly. She knew that Tan Xiu was very strong and had more than a dozen cultivators under him. But it was definitely not a wise move to go against so many huge foreign forces. At this moment, she suddenly despised Tan Xiu a lot. Mist Source Island Military Base. After returning here, Tan Xiu met with Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu as fast as possible. He learned that the doctor had discovered the principle of the darkening virus and was now going all out to concoct an antidote. As a matter of fact, Tan Xiu was well aware of his own limitations. His attainments in Chinese medicine were simply incomparable to Gui Jianqiu. The reason why he could treat so many difficult and complicated diseases was entirely due to his cultivation methods. "Do you need my help?" asked Tan Xiu while looking at Gui Jianqiu's tired but still busy figure. "No need for the time being." Gui Jianqiu shook his head and said, "If the antidote I've researched still can't completely solve the darkening virus problem by noon tomorrow, I'll find another solution. I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you then." Tan Xiu nodded. After leaving the temporary research institute, he saw Yang Chuxiong in a military uniform rushing over with several officers. "Division Commander Yang, I need your help." Tan Xiu had a plan in mind, so he spoke directly. "What do you need us to do, Mr. Tang?" asked Yang Chuxiong quickly. "Contact the leaders in the country. The higher the better," said Tan Xiu. "I think it'll be much easier if you can pass my needs to the number one leader." Yang Chuxiong's expression slightly changed and asked, "Why do you need to contact the number one leader?" "I need jades, a lot of raw materials that haven't been carved," said Tan Xiu. "The situation in Mist Source Island is very special, but some people can still come in easily. I'm going to arrange a powerful array around the island. Unless it's someone who knows how to get in and out of the array, no outsider can break in." "Array?" Yang Chuxiong was surprised. "You mean the means of those ancient geomancy warlocks? Do you know how to arrange the Qimen Duanjia?" "I know a bit about it," said Tan Xiu with a nod. "In fact, it's very easy to get raw jades." Yang Chuxiong hesitated. "As long as the higher-ups approve it, I believe they'll be sent here soon. But once you arrange that kind of array, won't it be troublesome? Mist Source Island may not have much contact with the outside world, but it's not completely isolated." "I know what you're thinking." Tan Xiu interrupted him. "Actually, I have a very good suggestion. Since the country wants to hide the existence of Mist Source Island, then we can seal the entire island. We can set up an entrance and an exit in 2 places on Mist Source Island. Just like the airport security check. We can set up a special department, and only the people from this department can open the passage and provide access services." Yang Chuxiong's eyes turned brighter and brighter as he listened to Tan Xiu's words. In the end, he couldn't help but slap the table and praise it. If it could really be done as Tan Xiu said, then there would be no need to worry about foreign forces sneaking into Mist Source Island in the future. Enter Mist Source Island, register, and let them in. Leave Mist Source Island, register, and let them out. Establish a perfect traffic order and control the flow of people in and out. The most important thing was that once this method was completed, the country could truly control Mist Source Island in the truest sense. Yang Chuxiong excitedly rubbed his hands and suddenly asked, "Mr. Tang, what's the effect of the Qimen Duanjia you arranged? Can it kill the enemy? I've watched the TV series Generals of the Yang family, and the Sky Gate array in it is very powerful. There are some arrays that can kill the enemy, but the one I want to arrange is mainly for defense," said Tan Xiu with a strange expression. "However, it's not impossible to make the array play an offensive role. It's just that the number of jades needed to be consumed will probably increase greatly." Yang Chuxiong clapped his hands and loudly said, "The jades don't matter. As long as it can kill the enemy, we don't need to worry even if foreign forces come to Mist Source Island again. They can't sneak in, and it's even more impossible for them to kill their way in. Only this level can be regarded as impregnable." Tan Xiu snickered inwardly. The reason why he proposed to arrange the array with jades was actually because of his own selfishness. If he wanted to get a lot of jades, buying them with his own money was just a small way. If the country could help, the amount of jades would definitely be more than what he could get with his own money. Some people were embezzling money, but he himself was embezzling jades. Precisely speaking, it wasn't actually embezzlement, but some returns after paying. After all, he had to painstakingly arrange the array. Seeing that Yang Chuxiong was about to leave, Tan Xiu quickly stopped him and said, "Division Commander Yang, can we have a private chat? I've done something on Miss Source Island and need to report it to you." Yang Chuxiong stared blankly for a moment and immediately asked the officers around him to leave. Then, he curiously asked, "What did you do, Mr. Tang?" "There are two main things," said Tan Xiu. "First, I've dealt with all the forces who sneaked into Miss Source Island. Except for the pyramid who lost a group of people and was expelled by me. I've sent my men to kill all the other forces." Hiss. Yang Chuxiong, who had been through hundreds of battles and had personally killed many people, couldn't help but gasp when he heard Tan Xiu's words. One must know. Those foreign forces had sent a lot of people to Mist Source Island. If all of them were added up, it would be at least 800 if not 1,000. This Tan Xiu was really ruthless and merciless. Also, I've encountered some thugs on Miss Source Island. When the infectious disease threatened the general public, some of them brutally killed people and even tortured them to death, said Tan Xiu again. My men also killed some of those who lost their minds, but their corpses were handled very well, leaving no traces behind. Yang Chuxiong nodded and said, "That's your authority. There's indeed no need to show mercy to those thugs. We're in a crisis now, yet those people dared to commit crimes. I'll bring them to justice if I encounter them." "I'm relieved since Division Commander Yang can understand," said Tan Xiu. "That's right, I'm going to take my men to walk around and have a look around, so I won't be staying in the base. Just contact me directly if there's any news about the array and the jade." "No problem," Yang Chuxiong happily replied. Just as Tan Xiu was about to leave, he suddenly turned his head and said, "Division Commander Yang, there's something I need to tell you. When we were dealing with those foreign forces, we found that the Stygian Club's people had a conflict with the Qingyuan Group's big boss, Miao Hengfu. Miao Hengfu and many of his men were killed by the Stygian Club's people." Yang Chuxiong stared blankly and immediately let out a bitter smile. "It's troublesome." Tan Xiu was surprised and asked, "What kind of troublesome? Isn't he just the boss of a company? How come you, the garrison's first commander, find it troublesome?" Chapter 750. Yang Chuxiong looked around and found no one around. Then he bitterly said, "Mr. Tang, you probably don't know about it yet. This Miao Hengfu has a rich background, and he's from the Mu family in the imperial capital. Now that he's killed, that person from the Mu family will never let this go. Thus, I have some connections with some people from the Mu family." "Who's that person you're talking about?" Tan Xiu deliberately asked. "Mu Jianhua," Yang Chuxiong replied in a low voice. "Do you mean Miao Hengfu's backer is Mu Jianhua?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "Yeah." Yang Chuxiong nodded. "Mu Jianhua of the Mu family may be a good-for-nothing, but he's still a member of the Mu family, and his father is the current patriarch of the Mu family. I'm afraid it'll be very troublesome if he makes a fuss." "An idiot?" Tan Xiu's mouth twitched and he helplessly said, "Division Commander Yang, I'll be frank with you. This idiot is actually my future father-in-law." "What?" Yang Chuxiong was dumbfounded. "My girlfriend is Mu Weining, and her father is Mu Jianhua," said Tan Xiu. "That's why this idiot is my future father-in-law." Cough, cough. Yang Chuxiong coughed twice with an awkward expression. He wished he could find a hole to bury himself in. Though he despised Mu Jianhua, he had some admiration for Tan Xiu. Yet he dared to curse Tan Xiu's future father-in-law in front of him. This was really shameful. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "Division Commander Yang, you don't need to take it to heart. Besides, Mu Jianhua is Mu Jianhua, and my girlfriend is my girlfriend. Let's not talk about this anymore. Since the person behind the Qingyuan group is one of us, then I'll help you clean up this mess." Yang Chuxiong let out a hollow laugh and quickly said, "You can do whatever you want, Mr. Tang. The Qingyuan group's business is booming on the surface, but there are some dirty businesses behind the scenes. If it wasn't for Mu, that person from the Mu family supporting us from behind, we would have dealt with Miao Hengfu a long time ago." Tan Xiu instantly understood Yang Chuxiong's meaning. A smile outlined on the corner of his mouth as he nodded and said, "I see. Rest assured, Division Commander Yang. In the future, the Qingyuan Group would never have anything to do with any shady business again. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." Qingyuan Group. When Tan Xiu arrived with Jin Shi and Xue Sha, they were stopped by several security guards before they could enter the company's gate. Even the security guards were very rude. "This is my ID." Tang Xiu took out the green book and saw that the security guards' complexions greatly changed. Their attitude also took a 180-degree turn. He immediately snorted coldly and said, "Don't tell anyone who we are. Continue your work." Saying, he walked inside. After entering the building at the front, Tan Xiu found two young female receptionists playing with their mobile phones at the counter, and several energetic men and women in suits gathered together to discuss something. Strange, they didn't prepare any electrostatic equipment here. Jin Shi, who was at Tan Xiu's side, couldn't help but mutter. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and came to the counter, saying, "I'm from the government. I'll have to trouble you to inform the Qingyuan Group's top executives to come to the conference room within half an hour." The two female receptionists observed Tan Xiu's group of three. Then, one of them shook her head and said with a charming smile, "Please don't tease us, sir. We would have gotten the news long ago if someone from the government came to inspect our work. Also, our boss isn't here, so you can wait for him to come back. Gather all the Qingyuan Group's top executives except your boss in the conference room," said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "This is my ID. If you obstruct my work, it will be considered an illegal act." The two female receptionists looked at the green book. They didn't know what this ID meant. After hesitating for a while, the woman said, "We don't have the right to do so, sir. How about we inform Chief Li? He's the vice president of our Qingyuan Group, so you can talk to him first." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man in his 40s came to the hall on the first floor with two youths. After observing Tan Xiu's group of three, he said, "I'm Li Hemming, the vice president of the Qingyuan Group. May I ask who you are?" After Tan Xiu showed him the ID, he said in a deep voice, "You should know what this ID of mine represents since you can become the vice president of the Qingyuan Group. Now, I order you to immediately summon all the Qingyuan Group's top executives to the conference room for a meeting. As for your boss, you don't need to wait for him." Li Hemming's complexion was a bit pale. Although he had never seen the green book, he had heard about what the three words on it represented. After quickly nodding, he walked a few steps to the side and called his big boss, Miao Hengfu's number. What gave him a headache was that his big boss didn't answer at all. In the conference room on the third floor, nearly everyone except the Qingyuan Group's big boss, Miao Hengfu, had arrived within half an hour. More than 20 people were sitting on both sides of the long conference table with indifferent expressions on their faces. Usually, only the big boss was qualified to sit on the chairs, whispering to each other. "Is everyone here, Li Hemming?" asked Tan Xiu as soon as the time was up. "Yes, everyone is here," answered Li Hemming. Tan Xiu slightly nodded and his sharp eyes swept over the faces of more than 20 people. Then, he said in a deep voice, "I'll make an announcement now. The Qingyuan Group's boss, Miao Hengfu, his only son, Miao Wenlei, and dozens of security guards of the security department have all died due to a conflict with some foreign forces. I've investigated Miao Hengfu's relatives. Aside from his only son, Miao Wenlei, he only has parents who are over 70 years old. His parents are obviously not suitable to take over the Qingyuan Group's business, so you now face two choices. The first one is to resign and leave the Qingyuan Group to find a better job elsewhere. Also, look for a new investor to convert Miao Hengfu's shares into cash and let his parents inherit it." Li Hemming was dumbfounded, as were the more than 20 Qingyuan Group's top executives in the conference room. They stared at Tan Xiu, dumbfounded and tongue-tied, with disbelief in their eyes. Their big boss is dead? The news was like a clap of thunder in everyone's ears, leaving them at a loss for a while. After a long while, Li Hemming's lips squirmed and he said in a low voice, "Mr. Tang, the entire Qingyuan Group belongs to our boss. He owns 100% of the shares." Tan Xiao had already sent some people to investigate this matter before he came to the Qingyuan group, so how could he not know about it at this moment? Looking at everyone's shocked faces, Tan Xiao indifferently said, "Since Miao Hengfu is dead and his parents are not suitable to run the Qingyuan group, then I'll make the decision. I'll give some money to Miao Hengfu's parents and let the state settle them down so that they can enjoy their old age in peace. The state will own a part of the Qingyuan group's shares, 51%. Apart from Li Heming, the rest of you will each get 1% of the shares. The remaining 25% of the shares will be invested into the Qingyuan group." After saying that, Tan Xiao asked in a deep voice, "Do you have any objections?" Li Heming's pupils shrunk and a glint flashed in his eyes. At this moment, how could he not see that Tan Xiao was representing the state to occupy Miao Hengfu's business? Upon seeing the excitement on the faces of the other senior executives who got 1% of the shares, Li Heming's heart tightened. He looked at Tan Xiao and said, "Mr. Tang, they have 22 people in total, so they will get 22% of the shares," said Tan Xiao. "You will get 3% of the shares and will be the general manager of the Qingyuan group from now on. As for your annual salary, it will remain unchanged." 3%? Nearly 100 million yuan? Li Heming was delighted and nodded, "I have no problem with that." Tan Xiao nodded in satisfaction. He then took out his communicator in front of everyone, dialed Mu Weiniang's cell number, and directly pressed the speakerphone button. "Hello, Tan Xiao." Mu Weiniang's voice came from the communicator and was clearly heard by everyone in the conference room. "Weiniang, how much money can your company take out now?" asked Tan Xiao. "What I mean is, how much spare money can you take out without affecting the normal operation of your company?" Mu Weiniang hesitated for a moment before saying, "The clients you introduced to me last time have increased the scale of my company by more than 10 times, and the income is also very considerable. I've checked the financial situation a few days ago, so it shouldn't be a problem for me to take out 250 million yuan. 250 million then," said Tan Xiao. "I'll introduce another business to you. You should know about the Mist Source Islands Qingyuan group, right? Your father, Mu Jianhua, has a deep relationship with the big boss of the Qingyuan group, Miao Hengfu. Now that Miao Hengfu and his son are dead, you can use 250 million yuan to invest in the Qingyuan group. You'll own 25% of the shares." "What? Miao Hengfu is dead?" Mu Weiniang's voice came again. "That's right. He's dead," said Tan Xiao. "I'm handling this matter on behalf of the government." "But my father," Mu Weiniang quickly said. Tang Xiao interrupted her and said, "I don't care about your dad, but I can take care of you. Come to Mist Source Island in person later. The Qingyuan Group's vice president, Li Heming, as well as the Mist Source Islands officials, will fully cooperate with you to carry out the equity change." "This, all right." Tan Xiao hung up the phone and looked at the shocked faces of more than 20 Qingyuan Group's top executives. Then he lightly said, "I don't need to explain it too clearly. I'm sure you all know who Mu Weiniang is. Miao Hengfu may be dead, but the Qingyuan group won't fall. I hope that you won't speak about this matter before the equity change is completed. Even if the equity change is completed, you'd better remember what you can and cannot say. Else, I'll take back everything you own, and I'll even make you pay more." "We understand." The faces of more than 20 top executives of the company slightly changed as they nodded with a solemn expression. Chapter 751. After solving the Qingya Group's problem, Tan Xiao directly chose to leave. The reason why the Chinese leaders sent him to Mist Source Island this time was very clear: to solve the darkening virus problem and maintain the safety of Mist Source Island's people. Of these two problems, the first one was handled by divine Dr. Gui Jianchou, so he didn't need to worry too much about it. As for the second one, he had solved most of it, which was to clean up the foreign forces. What he needed to do next was to maintain the safety of Mist Source Island's people and deal with all those who took advantage of the situation or maliciously spread extreme propaganda, causing panic among the people. Most importantly, all the criminals who caused the riots must be dealt with in this desperate situation. It could be said that Mist Source Island's police system had been completely paralyzed. The policemen infected with the darkening virus were already too busy to take care of themselves, So how could they have the time to worry about the people's safety? Hence, there was no way to count on them. Boss, I feel that something is amiss. At the entrance of the Qingyuan group, Jin Shi frowned and spoke to Tan Xiu the moment he sat in the car. What's wrong? Asked Tan Xiu. It took us 2 hours and 45 minutes to leave the Qingyuan group, boss, said Jin Shi. We were in the conference room for 2 hours. We weren't infected by the darkening virus because we're cultivators and can release our true essence to block the virus. The top executives of the Qingyuan group all showed signs of being infected, but they didn't use static electricity to suppress the darkening virus in their bodies. I think there's something wrong somewhere. Tan Xiu's expression suddenly changed after hearing this. He had ignored this problem just now and didn't expect that Jin Shi would notice it. After secretly blaming himself, Tan Xiu immediately said, "Contact Li Heming and tell him to come here at once." Understood, Jin Shi replied. A few minutes later, Li Heming arrived in a hurry. His eyes flashed when he saw the license plate of the car Tan Xiu took. White background, black characters, and red letters. It was a military license plate. Li Heming's eyes fell on Tan Xiu inside the window. His posture instantly turned lower as he respectfully came outside the window and bowed, saying, "What's your order, Mr. Tang?" Tan Xiu asked, "What's going on with this Qingyuan group? Everyone was infected with the darkening virus. Why didn't anyone use electrostatic suppression?" Li Heming hurriedly said, "There is an electrostatic discharge device installed in the company. This is boss. This is something Miao Hengfu bought from a group of foreigners. The static electricity covers the entire company, so all the employees in the company don't need anything that produces static electricity." Electrostatic discharger? Tan Xiu was shocked. He didn't expect such a thing to exist. After pondering for a moment, he immediately asked, "What's the maximum coverage area of this electrostatic discharger? What I mean is, can it cover the entire Mist Source Island?" I asked Miao Hengfu about this issue. Li Heming shook his head and said, "The electrostatic discharger used by our Qingyuan group should be the most effective one in the world, yet it can only cover a radius of a few kilometers. In the past, this kind of electrostatic discharger would be useless. Not only would it not be of much help to humans, but it would also cause great harm to human health." Tan Xiu nodded without a word. He felt that what Li Heming said made sense. After pondering for a moment, he slowly asked, "Can we still buy this electrostatic discharger?" "I don't know." Li Heming shook his head and said, "Miao Hengfu was the one who bought the electrostatic discharger, and he seems to have spent a lot of money on it. However, I know their origin. They are from the Micronesian Federation." Tan Xiu nodded helplessly. He knew this group of people, but they had been slaughtered by the Stygian Club's people. How could he still buy electrostatic dischargers from them? As he thought about it, he recalled that divine Dr. Gue Jianshou said that there would be some progress on the antidote by noon tomorrow. Tan Xiu silently suppressed the idea of buying electrostatic dischargers on a large scale. "Is there a relatively quiet place in the company? I want to settle some people here." "How many people exactly, Mr. Tang?" asked Li Heming. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he finally shook his head and said, "Forget it. In any case, the antidote for the darkening virus can be researched tomorrow. There's no need to go through so much trouble." He originally wanted to ask Tang Han to bring her confidants here, but he eventually gave up on it. He didn't want outsiders to know about his relationship with Tang Han for the time being. The Qingyuan group had too many people, and it would be easy to expose their relationship. Tang Manor Martial Arts School. Tan Xiu left the Qingyuan group and went straight to this place. Early the next morning, Mo and the others hurried over and informed them that they had eliminated all the remaining people from the foreign forces. "It's peaceful now, boss." With a relaxed expression, Mo smilingly looked at Tan Xiu, who was sitting on the sofa and smoking. "The peace you're referring to is the result of eliminating the foreign forces," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "But the real peace is far from being achieved. The darkening virus has infected all the people in the entire Mist Source Island, causing great panic among the people. Some people with bad intentions have fanned the flames and spread the public opinion that the world should be destroyed. Some people have even done a lot of extreme things during this period. Besides, although the darkening virus has been temporarily suppressed, it will cause panic among the people as long as it hasn't been solved. The longer it drags on, the more chaos it will cause. You mean? Asked Emo hesitantly. The 12 of us will be divided into 6 teams. 4 of them will rush to the 4 major cities of Python City, Wolfpack City, Twin Brook City, and Mixed Summit City to maintain the order of the residents, said Tanshio. Those who have bad intentions or do extreme things will be executed on the spot. The other 2 teams will have to work hard to patrol the villages and towns of Mist Source Island. Alright. Emo's reply was very straightforward. My men and I will also join, little brother, said Tang Han hurriedly. Besides, we're very familiar with Mist Source Island, so we can help you in the operation. No problem, said Tanshio with a smile. You no longer have the threat of the darkening virus, so it's not a big problem for you to help us. However, I need all of you to change your makeup so that no one can recognize you as members of the Tang Manor Martial School. How do we change our makeup? Asked Tang Han. Don't worry, Tanshio said with a smile. I have a way. Disguise and disguise. It was a piece of cake for Mo and the others. In their earlier years of training abroad, they had long mastered the use of these methods. Mist Source Island. The stability of the 4 major cities was indeed not good. Although the initial small-scale unrest was suppressed by the police with an iron fist, there were still many people with ulterior motives who were ready to destroy the state of affairs. Even some extreme people were sharpening their knives. They couldn't bear the virus infection and death, so they brandished their knives at others. There was no large-scale unrest, but there was a lot of chaos in small areas. Twin Brook City. Huimin Supermarket in a district. Dozens of youths with knives and sticks in their hands smashed the supermarket's door and swarmed inside. Although there wasn't much cash in the supermarket's cashier, the dazzling array of goods in the supermarket was very valuable. These people crazily scrambled to find high-priced goods and filled their pockets. All of you stop. On the stairs on the 2nd floor, a middle-aged woman holding a mobile phone shouted. Her face was full of anger and panic, but she didn't dare to go down the stairs. The dozens of youths ignored her. They were still and scrupulously looting and scrambling, turning the supermarket on the 1st floor into a mess. 4 or 5 minutes later, 5 men rushed from the outside with sticks in their hands. The middle-aged man leading them was full of anger. He rushed out from the inside and chopped down the youth who was about to return with a full load. Another knife was directly aimed at the neck of another youth who was caught off guard. Put them down. Whoever dares to rob this father of this supermarket, this father will kill him. The middle-aged man wiped the blood that splashed on his face and shouted loudly. In a flash, the dozens of youths in the supermarket stopped their actions and all quieted down. But just 5 or 6 seconds later, a youth shouted, "Why are you afraid of them? There are only 5 of them and we have dozens of people. If we kill them, we can move all the things in this supermarket to our own house." Kill them. A chaotic battle broke out in an extremely short period of time. The middle-aged man and his 4 companions were chased and beaten out of the supermarket. At this moment, the 4 of them were all riddled with injuries. One of them was even more seriously injured. In the end, he fell at the entrance of the supermarket. What greeted him was a group of people beating him to death. Creak. An off-road vehicle stopped nearby. 2 robust middle-aged men jumped out of the vehicle and dashed towards the people who were attacking people. Violent auras and powerful combat power. Before the group of people could react, 4 or 5 of them had already been killed by the middle-aged man. Kill those 2 bastards. Dozens of youths realized how powerful the 2 men were. They roared and bolstered their courage. They raised the weapons in their hands and rushed toward the 2 men. Puff, puff, puff. What did it mean to be a tiger in a flock of sheep? The scene in front of them was that the 2 middle-aged men grabbed the machetes on the ground and chopped those youths as if they were chopping melons. Their speed and strength were extremely fast. In just a few breaths, less than 10 of the dozens of youths were still alive. The devil! Run! Run! The rest of the youths didn't panic. They no longer had the slightest strength to fight. They dropped the weapons in their hands and even the things they robbed from the supermarket and ran away. However, their speed was too slow. The two middle-aged men were merciless and eventually caught up with all the youths and killed them all. Are they still human? At the corner of the street more than 100 meters away from the Huimin supermarket, the four middle-aged men who were previously chopped looked at the scene in front of them, dumbfounded. Dozens of young and strong lads. All of them were slaughtered? Moreover, they were so fast. Chapter 752. The four middle-aged men at the corner of the street were not the only ones who watched the massacre. Although it was a special period, there were still some people passing by. But at this time, everyone was hiding far away, looking at this one-sided massacre with fear. It was an era of peace, and there were very few murders on Mist Source Island in the past. But now, dozens of people were killed in a massacre. This was simply unimaginable in the hearts of these people. At this moment, one of the two murderers stood proudly at the entrance of the Huimin supermarket. He glanced at the people in the distance and shouted in a deep voice, "They deserve to die for endangering public security." Mist Source Island is now under the threat of the darkening virus, but some people are creating panic, burning, killing, and looting. Such people must pay a painful price. The government can't manage it now, and the police can't be on duty. So, people like us will replace the judges and police to enforce the law. All criminals who endanger public security must be punished by us. Replace the government? For a time, all the people who were afraid were filled with awe. They were well aware that the current public security was very poor, and even the police couldn't maintain public security because of the infection. Ordinary people like them were more or less affected by it. Suddenly, everyone's heart calmed down. Those who were ready to hide also put away the thought of leaving. They quietly observed their combat strength in various directions, watching the two killing gods. Vigilantes. That's right. In their hearts, they secretly gave these two people a name, Vigilante. The burly man standing proudly at the entrance of the Huimin supermarket looked around and noticed the change in the expressions of the surrounding people. Then he spoke in a clear voice again. It's the divine Dr. Gui Jiancho from the mainland. He's doing his best to research the antidote for the darkening virus. I hope everyone can tell each other that the infectious disease crisis will be lifted soon. After saying that, he waved to the four middle-aged men at the corner and asked aloud, "How are your bodies? If the injuries are not serious, please ask your friends around to help dispose of these corpses. Remember, it's best to immediately send these corpses to the crematorium and burn them to prevent the emergence of other infectious viruses." We're fine. Although the four middle-aged men were badly injured, and one of them was seriously injured, they still forced themselves to walk step by step. Needless to say, the appearance of these two people had saved the lives of the four of them. They were their saviors. If that's the case, we'll be leaving first. There are still other areas that we need to patrol. The two men cupped their fists, then quickly returned to the car, started the car and drove away. Python City. Wu Li dragged her tired body and carried some food that she had just bought from the supermarket. Step by step, she walked towards her home a few hundred meters away. She was also infected by the darkening virus, and it was a very serious case. Although the static electricity suppressed the spreading of the darkening virus, it tortured her day and night, causing her to feel weak all over. She was a single mother with a 6-year-old daughter. Although she usually had a good job and a considerable income, and even hired a nanny at home, the nanny had now left. She was the only one who could take care of her daughter. This feels great. The two drunk men were wearing suits, leather shoes, and ties. Even their hair was neatly combed. Even if they weren't bosses, they were at least executives of the company. However, the two of them looked a little drunk at the moment. Looking at the beautiful Wu Li, they even revealed lewd smiles. "What are you doing?" Wu Li's expression changed when she was blocked by the two men. She had heard that the entire Python City had been very chaotic in the past few days. There were even many murders. One of the men raised his hand and touched his chin. He laughed mischievously and directly pounced on Wu Li. He hugged her and impatiently kissed her. Slap. Although Wu Li didn't have much strength and couldn't even keep up with the speed of the man, it wasn't a problem for her to slap him. Unfortunately, her strength was limited, and she couldn't break free from the man's embrace. "Stinking whore, how dare you hit me?" The man let go of Wu Li and swung his fist at Wu Li's eye socket. After knocking her to the ground, he immediately started punching and kicking her. "Old Zhou, don't hurt her. We brothers still need to have some meat today." The other man stopped him and was about to drag Wu Li up. Wu Li endured the pain in her body and shouted for help. However, there were many people passing by at this moment. There were at least dozens of people passing by within a radius of 200 meters, but none of them came to help. Everyone looked on with cold eyes, as if the matter had nothing to do with them. Creak! A car stopped nearby and a big man jumped out of the car. A sharp dagger directly pierced the two people's hearts. Aya, Wu Li was shocked by the sudden turn of events. She staggered a few steps back and fell on her but on the cold concrete floor. The big man shouted in a deep voice, "The police can't maintain public order, so I'll be the representative of the law. Anyone who dares to endanger public safety, kill, burn, and loot, and commit all kinds of crimes will be killed without mercy. Listen to me, cowards around you. Whoever dares to create panic and violate the law will be mercilessly suppressed and killed by us." Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu is currently researching an antidote to treat the infectious disease and is expected to succeed in the next few days. I hope you can tell each other that you'll know your place and wait for the antidote to be delivered to your door. After saying that, the big man strode to Wu Li and looked at her panic-stricken face. He reached out to help her up from the ground and said, "Hurry up and go home. Wait for the antidote to be delivered to your door and resume your normal life." "Thank you. Thank you." A grateful look appeared on Wu Li's face and she kept thanking him. The big man said with a simple and honest smile, "This is what we should do. It's everyone's responsibility to maintain social stability and ensure public order." Soon after, the big man returned to the car and quickly left. Wolfpack City. Mixed Summit City. Similar things were happening everywhere. Everyone who violated the law was mercilessly killed and suppressed in a bloody manner. The deeds of the vigilantes were also passed on by word of mouth and quickly spread in the 4 major cities. Some people who committed crimes and harbored evil intentions were shocked by the news and didn't dare to act rashly for a while. In addition, the news that Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu was researching an antidote and that he would be able to develop an antidote in the next few days was like it had grown wings and was known by countless people in the 4 major cities. Suddenly, they seemed to see hope and prayed that Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu could smoothly develop an antidote. Mist Source Island. In the south of the Central Mountain, in a village with only 1,000 or 2,000 households, Tan Xiu personally killed a group of tyrannical village tyrants whose hands were stained with the blood of others and then announced that Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu was about to develop an antidote for the darkening virus. Suddenly, everyone was grateful to Tan Xiu. Everyone seemed to see hope. In the midst of the gratitude, the old village chief personally invited Tan Xiu and Tang Han to visit his house. A sumptuous dinner. Coupled with the wine brewed by the old village chief himself, Tan Xiu still drank a lot even though he was ready to leave early to patrol other remote places. Ring, ring, ring. The ringtone of the communicator woke up the slightly drunk Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu took out his mobile phone and found that the call was from Gu Xiaoxue. He immediately answered and asked, "Xiaoxue, have you arrived?" "Grandmaster, we have entered Mist Source Island. Where you now?" "We'll rush over there immediately." Gu Xiaoxue's sweet voice came from the communicator. "Go directly to the central mountain of Mist Source Island," said Tan Xiu. "I'm in the village south of the central mountain. Contact me again when you come over." "All right." After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu immediately canceled the idea of going to other places. Since Gu Xiaoxue and the rest had arrived, he would take them to the central mountain. It must be noted that the mountain was full of spiritual herbs, spirit fruits, and precious ores. They were the most scarce cultivation resources for the everlasting feast hall at present. In the evening, the sky was full of stars hanging in the night sky, and a cool breeze was blowing gently, bringing a cool and refreshing feeling to people. Tan Xiu stood on a large blue stone at the entrance of the village and looked up at the vast starry sky. He had been back on Earth for nearly a year and had experienced a lot of things. It was reasonable to say that he should be very satisfied. After all, he had relatives, friends, a career, and a confidant. Even his most concerned disciple, Gu Yen, had come here. But, at this moment, he was somewhat lost and even missed the days in the immortal world. Of course, what he missed the most were his several best friends. He wanted to stand in front of them and cut them alive. I will be kind to those who are kind to me. I will be evil to those who are evil to me. When I, Tan Xiu, set foot on the fertile land of the immortal world again, I will unleash a bloody storm. Those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. No one can rule the immortal world for hundreds of millions of years, so I will reign above the myriad races and break through the threshold of the immortal world. Tan Xiu clenched his fists, and his aura constantly surged. As he punched the void, layers of turbulent airflow caused ripples that spread in all directions. A kilometer away, more than a dozen cars quickly came. Gu Xiaoxue, who was sitting in the front car, could clearly see Tan Xiu standing on a tree. His seemingly thin figure looked particularly imposing at the moment. His handsome appearance was even more dashing at this moment. There was also his surging momentum and boundless domineering aura, as if he was the ruler of the world. Bam, bam, Gu Xiaoxue felt her heartbeat suddenly accelerate, and a lingering fear swayed in her heart. An indescribable emotion lingered around him, unable to get rid of it. Chapter 753. A cool breeze blew as the shadows of the trees swayed. Tan Xiu was keenly aware of the approaching vehicles. He trod on the air and walked to the ground step by step. As more than a dozen vehicles stopped in front of him, dozens of people got off and came before him. Tan Xiu's eyes then fell on the white-clothed, fairy-like Gu Xiaoxue. You've worked hard. Tan Xiu gently nodded with a smile on his handsome face. Gu Xiaoxue's eyes were particularly bright as she fixed her gaze on Tan Xiu's smile. Then, she intimately said, "It's not us who has worked hard, Grandmaster. It's you who has." "How's Yen's situation?" Tan Xiu asked with a smile. "Did she tell you anything before you came here?" "Master told me to send her regards to you, Grandmaster," said Gu Xiaoxue. "Also, she can leave the Everlasting Feast Hall for the time being, but she can't stay for more than 2 days. So she's waiting for you. She said that she wants to go out with you after you go to Jingmen Island." 2 days? "I see," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Are we going to the mountain you mention now, Grandmaster?" asked Gu Xiaoxue. "Or should we wait?" asked Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiu looked at the dozens of people standing respectfully behind Gu Xiaoxue. They didn't look tired but were full of vigor instead. After pondering for a moment, Tan Xiu said, "Let's take a rest first. I'll take you to the mountain early tomorrow morning. That mountain is somewhat special and shrouded by an array. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to enter without my guidance." "We'll follow your arrangement, Grandmaster." Gu Xiaoxue nodded. That night, Tan Xiu led everyone into the village. The courtyard occupied by the foreign forces was now unoccupied, so he didn't have to worry about living there. However, just as these people were settled down, Tang Han arrived in the darkness of the night. "Little brother, who are they?" Tang Han looked at Gu Xiaoxue and the dozens of people from the Everlasting Feast Hall with a confused expression. "Big sis, let me introduce you," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "This is my grand disciple, Gu Xiaoxue. The rest are from the Everlasting Feast Hall and are also my subordinates. You can treat them as your own people, the kind of people you can entrust your life to." "The Everlasting Feast Hall? Grand disciple?" Tang Han looked at the beautiful Gu Xiaoxue with disbelief in her eyes. She knew about the Everlasting Feast Hall. Its headquarters was in Jingmen Island, and she heard that the business there was quite good. However, his younger brother was only 21 years old. How did he have a grand disciple? Moreover, looking at the girl's appearance, she seemed to be 1 or 2 years older than him. Gu Xiaoxue didn't know Tang Han's identity, but when she heard Tan Xiu call her sister, she immediately said respectfully, "Greetings, Martial Aunt. I am Gu Xiaoxue." "Martial Aunt?" Tang Han didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she heard this form of address. She suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. After hesitating for a while, she hurriedly said, Gu Xiaoxue, you don't need to call me martial ant. I should be a few years older than you. If you don't mind, you can call me Big Sis, or Big Sis Han. I don't know why you call Tan Xiu Grandmaster, but we're all modern people, so we can talk about our own things. This, Gu Xiaoxue was dumbfounded. She didn't expect that Tang Han would say such a thing. Subconsciously, she quickly glanced at Tan Xiu and shot him an inquiring look. Tan Xiu didn't care about the address, so he waved his hand and said, whatever you want to call each other, it's up to you. Tang Han pulled Gu Xiaoxue's hand and smilingly said, see? Tan Xiu has no objection, so just listen to me. You can call me Big Sis or Big Sis Han. But if you call me Martial Ant, you'll make me sound old. Alright then. Hello, Big Sis Han. Gu Xiaoxue braced herself and said, since we're on the same side, you don't need to be polite with me in the future, said Tang Han with a satisfied smile. That's right, there's something I can't figure out. Why do you call Tan Xiu Grandmaster? Because he's my master's master, said Gu Xiaoxue. Your master's master? Asked Tang Han with a strange expression. Your master is? My master is Gu Yanno, said Gu Xiaoxue. I was raised by my master. My master is my Grand Master's disciple, so he's naturally my Grand Master. Tang Han was a bit dizzy after hearing this theory. She realized that she couldn't ask anything from Gu Xiaoxue, so she immediately said to Tan Xiu, little brother, tell me, what's going on? Yan is my disciple, and Xiaoxue is Yan Er's disciple, so it's right for Xiaoxue to call me Grand Master, said Tan Xiu. I have several disciples, some of whom are a bit older. Do you know the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical? I do, said Tang Han immediately. The Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical is a large Chinese herbal medicine company in China, and its boss, Chen Zhizhong, is a very capable man. I've been to the inland many times, so I know some special people. Chen Zhizhong is also my disciple, though he's only my in-name disciple. Tan Xiu nodded. His son is older than me, but he still calls me Grand Master. Chen Zhizhong is your disciple? Asked Tang Han in surprise. Heavens! What kind of ability do you have, little brother? You can even take Chen Zhizhong as your disciple? Didn't Grandpa tell you that I'm a cultivator? Asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Tang Han stared blankly for a moment before she immediately shook her head. Grandpa didn't tell me. All right, since Grandpa didn't tell you, then I'll tell you now, said Tan Xiu with a smile. If you also want to cultivate, big sister, I can teach you a cultivation technique so that you can have powerful strength. I'll learn it, replied Tang Han without hesitation. Although she had been staying on Mist Source Island for many years, she was, after all, a member of the Tang family and knew some rumors. For example, cultivators were simply existences akin to immortals, yet they really existed in this world. It was just that she never expected that this younger brother of hers turned out to be a cultivator. Little brother, since you're a cultivator, then, can you fly like the legends say? Asked Tang Han with a face full of expectation. I'll naturally be able to fly when my cultivation reaches a certain level, said Tan Xiu with a smile. However, flying requires the help of some minor spells, such as the most basic qi control art. Well, don't ask about it for now. You'll understand it when you become a cultivator and have powerful strength. All right. Tang Han nodded with a look of expectation. Early in the next morning, Tan Xiu took Tang Han, Gu Xiaoxue, and dozens of members of the Everlasting Feast Hall to leave the village and rush toward the Misty Mountain. Since Tan Xiu had comprehended the array around the mountain, he easily brought everyone into the mountain. Heavens! Is this place a fairyland? Tang Han, who had never seen such a scene on the mountain, opened her mouth wide and looked shocked. Those towering trees were taller and bigger than the trees she had seen for hundreds of years. The size of those animals broke her impression of normality. Is that really a rabbit, little brother? Asked Tang Han incredulously as she looked at a rabbit the size of an adult yak. That's right. It's indeed a rabbit, said Tan Xiu with a smile. But if my guess is correct, that rabbit has lived for at least hundreds of years, maybe even more than a millennium. You can call it a rabbit demon. A rabbit demon? Tang Han's heart trembled and her footsteps instantly halted. Don't worry, Tan Xiu said with a smile. I've been to this mountain before and found that the animals here are very docile. They won't hurt you as long as you don't take the initiative to attack them. Only then did Tang Han feel relieved and sincerely exclaimed, I didn't expect you to be this powerful, little brother. You must know that countless people have tried every means to come here, yet they have never succeeded. I never thought that I would be able to come to this mountain one day. It will definitely cause a great uproar if anyone outside knows about this place. Big sis, don't tell anyone about coming to this mountain, said Tan Xiu quickly. Not even your trusted men. This mountain can be called a treasure mountain. Right now, only we can enter, so even if it is occupied by the Tang family, we will not be able to enter. Even if it's occupied by our Tang family, I'm afraid outsiders will flock here if they know about it. I understand. Don't worry. Tang Han solemnly nodded. Tan Xiu then looked at Gu Xiaoxue and the other members of the Everlasting Feast Hall and said in a deep voice, Don't try to climb higher. This mountain is very strange. The higher you go, the stronger the pressure you will encounter. You may get injured if you try to go up by force. Alright, you can start now. Pay attention to your own safety and go all out to plunder the resources here. Our Everlasting Feast Hall needs them. Understood. Gu Xiaoxue and the others nodded. After frantically plundering, a huge number of spiritual herbs, spirit fruits, ores, and other resources were packed into 10 interspatial rings. These interspatial rings were refined by Ji Qimei in the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ. Tan Xiu stayed in the mountain for the whole morning and then left in a hurry, leaving everyone behind. After leaving the mountain, he immediately dialed Divine Dr. Gui Jianshou's communicator. Tan Xiu, I knew you wouldn't be able to resist calling me. I'll tell you some good news. I've developed an antidote, and it's based on your previous experiment theory. I've finally found the right direction. I've already told Yang Chuxiong about the research data and the medicinal herbs that need to be mass-produced. He has already taken the military personnel to work on it. Have you tested it? Asked Tan Xiu. Can it really cure the infectious disease? All 30 patients have been cured, answered Gui Jianshou. That's great. Tan Xiu was pleasantly surprised. Thank you so much, Divine Doctor. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to solve the darkening virus crisis. Anyways, I have something important to do now. I'll immediately rush back to the military base after I'm done with it. I'll treat you to a drink at that time. God's nectar. Gui Jianshou smilingly said. No problem. God's nectar, I'll fill you up, said Tan Xiu happily. Ha, Gui Jianshou laughed heartily. Chapter 754. The problem of the darkening virus had been solved, and Tan Xiu finally felt relieved. After returning to the central mountain, he escorted the people of the Everlasting Feast Hall while searching for precious resources. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. After 2 days of searching, a large number of precious medicinal herbs, spirit fruits, and 6 or 7 kinds of precious ores had been excavated. 6 of the 10 interspatial rings had been filled to the brim. According to Gu Xiaoxue, the resources obtained in these 2 days were enough for the Everlasting Feast Hall's normal consumption for 3 to 5 years. Tan Xiu was also in a very good mood. There were also various resources in his interspatial ring, but what made him the happiest was one of them, the Bell Spirit Stone Milk. This kind of Bell Spirit Stone Milk was definitely not an ordinary thing. A small mouthful of it could prolong an ordinary person's lifespan and be reborn. Tan Xiu was lucky enough to find a small spiritual vein in the crevice of the mountain stream. There was a narrow passage leading to the bottom of the spiritual vein. Although the amount of Bell Spirit Stone Milk he obtained was not much, it was still several kilograms. I'm out. Outside the white mist area, Tan Xiu looked at the direction of the billowing white mist with unconcealable joy in his eyes. He was getting more and more curious about Earth. It was simply unimaginable for such a small planet in the vast universe to have so many heavenly and earthly treasures. He had once encountered a treasured planet in the immortal world star field. Although it was full of treasures, it was slightly inferior compared to the good things on Earth. Tang Han smiled and looked at the billowing white mist with a bit of reluctance. She had taken a mouthful of the Bell Spirit Stone milk and had been reborn. Not to mention that her cultivation had broken through to the martial arts Grandmaster realm. Tan Xiu had taught her a set of cultivation technique, which had transformed the true qi inside her body into true essence. Once all of it was transformed into true essence, her strength would go up another level. It would be great if I could live here forever. Tang Han sighed from the bottom of her heart. Normal people will go crazy if they live here forever, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Alright, big sis. Just tell me in advance when you want to come here later. I'll bring you in again. Tang Han smiled and said, it's a deal. Tan Xiu looked at Gu Xiaoxue and the others and said, since we have searched the mountain range that can be climbed like a carpet, you can take everyone back. When our strength increases in the future, we can come back again and look for treasures at a higher place. Gu Xiaoxue asked curiously, Grandmaster, haven't you settled everything here? The harm caused by the darkening virus has been solved, and those foreign forces have been driven out. Don't tell me you don't want to return to Jingmen Island with us? Tan Xiu shook his head and said, those things have been solved and my mission is considered completed, but I still need to stay here for some time. 2 days ago, I suggested to the commander of the garrison of Mist Source Island to set up a feng shui array around the island. This matter hasn't been done yet, so I can't leave for the time being. You're going to arrange a feng shui grand array that covers the entire Mist Source Island? Why is that? It's every citizen's duty to serve the country, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Of course, the country will provide a lot of jades, and I'll have the final say on how many jades are needed to arrange the array. Don't you think that you'd feel sorry for your hard work these days if you don't take this opportunity to make some money? The exceptionally intelligent Gu Xiaoxue instantly understood what kind of wishful thinking Tan Xiu had in mind. She couldn't help but laugh and said, you're really amazing, Grandmaster. Tan Xiu didn't dwell on this topic and instead said, all right, you can go back now. I'll directly return to Jingmen Island after I'm done with the matters here. Understood. As Gu Xiaoxue left with her people, Tan Xiu came to the southern village where Mo Au and the others were waiting. Upon seeing Tan Xiu come back, they immediately showed relaxed smiles. However, what made Tan Xiu feel strange was that Shui Gui's face was bruised and swollen. He was also injured and his smile was a bit forced. What happened? Asked Tan Xiu while looking at Shui Gui. At the door of the house, Zhenlei Duomo lazily played with the dagger in her hand. She then looked up and said, I did it. What happened? Tan Xiu frowned and stared blankly for a moment. Shui Gui and Zhenlei Duomo had a match, boss. Mo forced a smile and said, Shui Gui was badly beaten. He wanted to take revenge, but he endured it because of your order. Now that they have a match, Shui Gui knows that he's not Zhenlei Duomo's match, so the depression in his heart has been alleviated a lot. Tan Xiu suddenly understood. He looked at the tangled Shui Gui and then at the indifferent Zhenlei Duomo. He then nodded and said, that's all for now. I don't want to see you fight again. If you really want to fight to the death in the future, wait for me to break through the most important shackles. I'll be your witness then. Shui Gui turned his head and glared at Zhenlei Duomo. Then he respectfully said, I've thought it through, boss. If she's really like us, I'll give up on revenge. According to the rules of our everlasting feast hall, we must never fight against our own people. However, I need Zhenlei Duomo to pay the price. Tan Xiu's expression moved as he looked at Zhenlei Duomo and said, let me confirm it again. Are you really Yen's adopted child? You even got her inheritance? That's right, said Zhenlei Duomo. After we arrive in Jingmen Island, once Yen has confirmed it, will you be willing to join the Everlasting Feast Hall? Asked Tan Xiu. I need to make it clear to you that once you join the Everlasting Feast Hall, you'll be a member of the Everlasting Feast Hall in the future. You'll be a member of the Everlasting Feast Hall in life and a ghost of the Everlasting Feast Hall in death. You must kill even those closest to you once they become enemies of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Zhenlei Duomo's expression turned serious. After pondering for a long time, she slowly said, my life was given to me by her, and the achievements I have today are all thanks to her. She's my mother in my heart. So, I'll do whatever she asks me to do. If she agrees to let you join the Everlasting Feast Hall, then you'll have to compensate Shui Gui with a year's allocation of resources. Do you have any objection? Asked Tenshio. Allocation of resources? Zhenlei Duomo thought about it and felt that it should be the monetary salary she could get as a member of the Everlasting Feast Hall. She was not short of money and was even a billionaire, so she nodded and said, "Since this hatred can be resolved, I naturally have no problem with it." Do you agree? Tan Xiu looked at Shui Gui and asked. I agree. Shui Gui nodded without a word. Since it's settled, then let's write off all the previous grievances. Tan Xiu nodded and smilingly said, After all, you both belong to different camps. After all, it's hard to say who's right and who's wrong since you both belong to different camps. Shortly put, I hope you can become brothers and sisters who fight side by side in the future, not enemies. Understood. Shui Gui nodded solemnly. Zhenlei Duomo raised her hand indifferently and agreed with Tan Xiu's words. As a matter of fact, she had no interest in joining the Everlasting Feast Hall. In her opinion, apart from Tan Xiu and herself, no one else in the Everlasting Feast Hall could be her opponent. Joining such a force was fine, but it couldn't restrain her. The infectious disease problem has been solved and the foreign forces have been driven out. Tan Xiu smilingly said, There's only one thing left for us to do. There is only one thing left for us to do, and that is to follow me to arrange a feng shui grand array on the periphery of Mist Source Island. After arranging the array, we'll go directly to Jingmen Island. Suddenly, he seemed to recall something and asked, How's the security problem in Mist Source Island these days? We killed some people, which played a very good deterrent role, said Mo. The antidote for the darkening virus has been researched, which is like giving the residents of Mist Source Island a reassurance pill, so the security problem has been solved. Also, the antidote is being produced on a large scale. The military and government personnel have taken the antidote, and the police have taken over the normal order. Jean Sher grinned and said, You're famous again, boss. Now, everyone in the entire Mist Source Island knows of your great name, and they are all deeply grateful to you, wishing that they could worship you. What do you mean? Tan Xiu stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression. What do you mean? Jean Sher smilingly said, The antidote developed by Divine Dr. Gui Jianchou was originally based on the research idea you provided before, which finally led to the current result. Therefore, when Divine Dr. Gui Jianchou was interviewed by the media, he emphasized that you're actually the great contributor to the development of the antidote. Tan Xiu was dumbfounded. He never thought that Divine Dr. Gui Jianchou would directly push him to the front of the stage. Although it was his responsibility to solve the problem in Mist Source Island, he never thought that he would be in the limelight. Forget it. I'll arrange the feng shui array and leave immediately after a large number of jades are delivered. Even if I become famous here, it won't affect me in the future. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and immediately relaxed. Standing next to Tan Xiu, Tang Han suddenly asked, Little brother, will our relationship be exposed if you go back to the Tang Manor Martial School with me now? It will be. Tan Xiu was well aware of the power of the media. Since he had become a household name now, he believed that the media would soon learn about him once he appeared in the Tang Manor Martial School. If they were to dig deeper, they might even dig out the fact that he had been to the Tang Manor Martial School. Big sis, we won't be going to the Tang Manor Martial School for the time being. Just contact me directly through the communicator if you want to see me in the next few days. Let's have a meal together when I leave. Also, I'll find a way to help you get a pass to freely enter and exit Mist Source Island. You can look for me outside whenever you miss me. Although Tang Han wanted to spend more time with Tan Xiu, she was perfectly aware of her mission, so she nodded and said, If that's the case, then I'll take my leave first. Remember to tell me when you're about to leave. Big sis will cook a meal for you. Alright. Chapter 755. In the evening, Tan Xiu, Mo, and the others came to the military base on Mist Source Island. He learned that Divine Dr. Gui Jianchou was supervising the production of the antidote for the darkening virus, so he didn't disturb him. As Yang Chuxiong hurried over, The two entered a conference room. Mr. Tang, the #1 leader has agreed to your plan. The state is now collecting a lot of jades and will send them to Mist Source Island in the near future. Yang Chuxiong was very excited. Once the array was set up, the entire Mist Source Island would be like an impregnable fortress, and there would be no need to worry about outsiders sneaking in. How long will it take? Asked Tan Xiu. The leader said that the state has a batch of jades that can be sent immediately, but the quantity is only about 5 tons, said Yang Chuxiong. If it's not enough, more jades will be sent later. But the leader doesn't know how much jades you need, so he asked me to ask you. 5 tons? Tan Xiu's mouth twitched a few times, and his heart was filled with excitement. It must be noted that even if the entire Mist Source Island was covered with an array, it would probably require less than a ton of jades. But the state actually sent 5 tons in the first batch. Wouldn't he be able to keep the rest for himself? It's a big profit. Tan Xiu was excited inwardly, but he didn't show it on the surface. Instead, he deliberately furrowed his brows and slowly shook his head. 5 tons of jades are not enough. You must know that Mist Source Island is very large, and the amount of jades needed is also very large. It's at least 15 tons. Yang Chuxiong thought for a while and nodded. 15 tons of jades is not a lot. The jade mines in our country can produce a lot of jades every year, but most of them are in the hands of private bosses, so the state needs to spend some time to buy them. Let's wait. All the jades should be sent here in 10 days to half a month. All right. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction. Tan Xiu had dinner with Yang Chuxiong. When Divine Dr. Gui Jianchou learned that Tan Xiu had returned to the military base, he also rushed over and had a drink with Tan Xiu. When Miracle Dr. Gui Jianchou was about to leave the military base, Tan Xiu gave him 2 boxes of God's nectar, making him praise Tan Xiu for being sensible. Yang Chuxiong also got some benefits. He also got 2 boxes of God's nectar. Of course, he didn't get it for free either. Yang Chuxiong made up a lie and helped Tang Han get a military pass. Even if the Feng Shui formation was set up, Tang Han would have the right to come and go as she pleased. Late at night, Tan Xiu was sitting cross-legged in cultivation when someone knocked on his door. Mo Ao's voice came from outside. Boss, someone from the mainland has come. It's the lady boss, Mu Weining. Lady boss? Tan Xiu smiled bitterly in his heart. He opened the door and asked, "Where is she?" Jean sure has taken him to the barracks and is now on the way here, said Mo Ao. He should be here in a few minutes. Tan Xiu nodded and went back to his room to put on his coat. Just as he came to the entrance of the 2-story building, he saw Mu Weining and 4 middle-aged men and women following behind Jean Sure as they came down from 2 military jeeps. Tan Xiu. Mu Weining was very excited to see Tan Xiu. She had been so busy recently because Tan Xiu had introduced a lot of businesses to her. During this period, she only called Tan Xiu a few times. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "You've been working hard all the way here. Have a good rest tonight. I'll take you to the Qingyuan group tomorrow." Mu Weining gently nodded and came to Tan Xiu. She restrained the urge to hug him, but still held Tan Xiu's arm and affectionately said, "I miss you. I miss you very much." Tan Xiu smiled and gently hugged her shoulder. After turning around and returning to the small building, he ordered Mo Ao to contact the management staff to arrange accommodation for the 4 people brought by Mu Weining. Then he took Mu Weining to the 2nd floor. "Is this your first time here?" After entering the room, Tan Xiu took off his coat and asked with a smile. "It's my first time." Mu Weining nodded. "I've heard my dad mention it a few times before. I really didn't expect that the scenery on Mist Source Island would be so beautiful. If it weren't for the fact that I still have a lot of things to do outside, I would have thought of settling down here. The environment here is really good. At least, the air here is many times better than Shanghai." Tan Xiu smiled. "If you like it here, you can buy a house here later. You can come here for a vacation and relax when you want to come here. All right, you can accompany me," Mu Weining said with a smile. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "I'll accompany you if I have time in the future." Afterward, the 2 of them chatted about some recent events. Finally, Mu Weining said with a bit of worry, My dad has learned about the Qingyuan group situation, and he's very angry. Especially when he learned that you solved the Qingyuan group's problem. What do you think about it then? Tan Xiu smiled. I understand what you're thinking about. Mu Weining smiled. My dad has indeed gone too far these years. Now that I've invested in the Qingyuan group and own 25% of its shares, my dad's income will be stuck with me in the future. Don't worry about it. If my dad needs money in the future, he won't dare to show any objection to you. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, if your dad knows what you're thinking about, I'm afraid he'll be so angry that his nose will be crooked. It's said that a grown girl can't be kept at home, so he must think so. Mu Weining was a bit shy, but she still said, a married daughter is like water that has been poured out. Although I'll be filial to him, I can't let him do whatever he wants. My mom has suffered a lot of grievances all these years, and I can't let you suffer the same. It seems that I'm really happy to have a girlfriend like you, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Mu Weining used to be very reserved, and coupled with her indifferent personality, she looked more gentle and virtuous, like a fairy who didn't eat the common food of the world. But at this moment, an inexplicable impulse emerged inside her heart, and she said, marry me early if you feel happy. Ugh. Tan Xiu was stumped by her words for a long time and couldn't speak. He let out a hollow laugh a few times and then said, we're still too young, not even the legal age for marriage. Besides, we're still students. Let's wait until we graduate from college. We'll get married after we graduate. Mu Weining said softly. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly, but there was a bit of a smile on his face as he said, no problem. That night, Mu Weining stayed in Tan Xiu's room to rest, while Tan Xiu cultivated the whole night. The next day, he was still in high spirits as he rushed to the Qingyuan group with Mu Weining. After solving the stock issue, he sent Mu Weining away and then returned to the military base. He waited for 2 days. 5 tons of good quality jades were delivered. When Tan Xiu looked at these jades, his eyes shone. When he participated in the stone gambling meet in Star City, he spent a lot of money to buy a little bit of jades. But now, he could get more than 100 times more jades by just moving his lips and working a bit harder. This kind of comfortable feeling made his mood very good. What do you think of these jades, Mr. Tang? Yang Chuxiong, who accompanied Tan Xiu, looked at the jades in the container truck and asked. The quality is very good. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, it's no problem to arrange a feng shui array. However, I still need to urge Division Commander Yang to arrange the array as soon as possible so that I can go back earlier. Don't worry, Yang Chuxiong said. No one dared to neglect the order since it was issued by the number 1 leader. I just got the news that all the jades needed can be transported to Mist Source Island in 5 days at most. So, when do you think we can arrange the array? I need to personally survey the surrounding terrain of Mist Source Island in the next few days, said Tan Xiu. Then I'll start immediately. I'll take these jades with me and bury them in a specific location. If all the jades can be delivered within 5 days, I can arrange the array in half a month at most. No problem, said Yang Chuxiong excitedly. Time fleeted by and a week passed in the blink of an eye. Tan Xiu had obtained 15 tons of good quality jades. After on-site investigation, he finally determined that the amount of jades needed for the array was less than a ton. Therefore, the remaining 14 tons of jades were naturally pocketed by him and taken for himself. Arranging the array around the entire Mist Source Island was definitely not a small project. But with the help of Mo Au and the others, Tan Xiu's arrangement speed was very fast. He buried all the jades in the 36 important foundations around Mist Source Island. Boss, a leader from the Mist Source Island government just called and said that he wants to see you. The reporters from the Mist Source Island TV station also want to interview you. How should I reply to them? Mo Au came to Tan Xiu and asked in a low voice. Tan Xiu looked at the white mist in the distance and said without hesitation, reject them all. Just say that I'm busy with important things and have no time to accept the interview, let alone see them. Tell them to find Yang Chuxiong if they have something they want to know. Mo Au complied and left with the communicator. Time passed quickly again. On the 13th day after all the jades were delivered, Tan Xiu finally arranged the entire array. The array he arranged was also known as the interlocking array. On one hand, it could be used for defense, and on the other hand, it could also be used for offense. On the southern coastline of Mist Source Island, thousands of military soldiers had sealed off the entire area within a radius of more than 10 kilometers. No one could leave Mist Source Island for the time being, nor could they come in from the outside. Yang Chuxiong stood beside Tan Xiu and looked at the two 18-meter-high pillars, his mind shrouded in mist. He wanted to ask Tan Xiu several times about why he arranged these two pillars here, but after seeing the solemn expression on Tan Xiu's face, he understood that it was not convenient for Tan Xiu to be disturbed. It's almost time. Tang Xiu immediately looked at Yang Chuxiong and said as the sun set in the west and was blocked by the white mist in the distance. What's almost time? Asked Yang Chuxiong, confused. It's almost time to witness a miracle, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Division Commander Yang, tell your military soldiers to withdraw 5 kilometers. Chapter 756. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, Yang Chuxiong immediately realized that the array was about to be successfully arranged. Full of excitement, he quickly issued an order to withdraw the troops. Mr. Tang, we've withdrawn 5 kilometers. A smile was outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. As he lifted his feet, it was as if there was an invisible staircase in front of him as he walked step by step through the void to the coastline more than 10 meters high. Heavens! What did I just see? Yang Chuxiong's heart was pounding and his eyes were as big as copper bells. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed that someone could walk on the void. Was he still a human? Suddenly, Yang Chuxiong realized why this young man, whom he had once despised, was sent by the country's #1 leader to solve the crisis on Mist Source Island. He was simply a celestial being. Tan Xiu didn't know how shocked Yang Chuxiong was, nor did he have the time to care about it. His eyes looked around and then slowly spread his arms. A surging aura instantly erupted from his body. Even though Yang Chuxiong was used to seeing the big shots in the country, he was still startled by the surging aura coming from Tan Xiu. At this moment, Tan Xiu gave him the feeling that a towering mountain suddenly appeared in front of him. Activate the array. A deep voice came out of Tan Xiu's mouth. Waves of primal chaos force were released from his hands and instantly fused into the array pattern of the void array. In an instant, a layer of airflow ripples appeared out of thin air. Ancient characters that had experienced the vicissitudes of life loomed in the ripples and then spread to both sides at a very fast speed. 10 minutes passed. Tan Xiu's body suddenly trembled and his complexion turned pale. He quickly swooped down and appeared in front of Yang Chuxiong in the blink of an eye. The moment his feet touched the ground, his legs gave way and he staggered 2 steps forward. Mo, who had sharp eyes and quick hands, caught him. Boss? Mo called out with a worried look on his face. Tan Xiu raised his arm and shook his head. I'm fine. I just consumed too much power. I'll be fine after resting for 2 days. This Mist Source Island is too big, and it takes a lot of energy to activate the entire array. Looks like my current cultivation is still not enough. Mo, on the other hand, looked at him with admiration and said, Your cultivation is improving rapidly, boss. I believe it won't be long before you reach a higher level. Tan Xiu faintly smiled. Then he looked at the dumbfounded Yang Chuxiong and said, I've completed my task, Division Commander Yang. The entire array has been activated. The distance between these 2 pillars is 24 meters, which is also the entrance to Mist Source Island. I'll tell you how to open the entrance. As for who you'll send to guard this place, it has nothing to do with me. Also, you know where the exit is, so I'll leave the rest to you. Yang Chuxiong watched as the rippling airflow slowly dissipated and returned to its original state. Only then did he sober up from the shock. He looked at Tan Xiu and said, I'll arrange it, Mr. Tang. The next day, Tan Xiu left Mist Source Island with Mo and the others. Although the chaos force within his body had recovered by less than 50%, the feeling of weakness had completely disappeared. Standing on the bow deck, he looked at the vast sea in front of him with a complicated expression. He recalled the moment when he left the Tang Manor martial arts school last night. Tang Han's tearful and reluctant appearance was all over his face. At this moment, he was even considering whether he should return to the mainland and talk to the old man about Mist Source Island. The present Tang family was no longer the Tang family of the past. As long as he was alive, the Tang family would be safe and sound. Moreover, the Nine Dragons Island would be completed in a few months at most. Once the island could be used, the Tang family's biggest escape route would be Nine Dragons Island. "Shall we go to Jingmen Island directly, Mr. Tang?" Zhenlei Duomo, clad in a black leather coat, came to Tan Xiu's side and asked. Tan Xiu glanced at her and indifferently said, "We're going to Jingmen Island." "Will I be able to see her soon?" asked Zhenlei Duomo quickly. Tan Xiu didn't rush to answer and instead asked, "Zhenlei Duomo, what do you think people live for? If you had more power, what would you do?" Zhenlei Duomo stared blankly and immediately fell into silence. "What do people live for? For happiness and happiness? What else can I do if I have more power? Money? Rights?" Zhenlei Duomo was silent for a long time. Then, she shook her head and said with a blank expression, "I don't know. I only know that I want to live, and I want to live a better life." "Given your current strength, not many people can take your life if you don't want to die," Tan Xiu asked back. "Besides, you're now at the foundation establishment stage and your lifespan is much longer than ordinary people. Don't you have any pursuits after living for such a long time?" "What pursuits do you have?" asked Zhenlei Duomo. A strange expression appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he slowly said, "I'm afraid my pursuits are a bit higher than yours. I want to live as long as the heaven and earth, and I want to stand above the myriad races. Maybe one day in the future, I'll become a god and go to the legendary god realm." "Becoming a god? God realm?" A sneer appeared on Zhenlei Duomo's face. She didn't believe that gods and immortals existed in this world. In her opinion, if gods and immortals really existed, the earth wouldn't be like this now. Therefore, she thought that Tan Xiu was just indulging in a whimsical and boring fantasy. Tan Xiu was keenly aware of the sneer on Zhenlei Duomo's face. He indifferently smiled and said, "Now it's your turn. What do you want to do in the future?" Zhenlei Duomo took a deep breath and said, "I want to be the godfather of all the gangs in the world." Cough, cough. Tan Xiu nearly choked to death upon hearing her words. The godfather of gangs? That's all you've got? It was really hard for him to imagine that a cultivator with monstrous cultivation would become the godfather of gangs. Most importantly, she's a woman. Tan Xiu was really unable to ridicule Zhenlei Duomo's dream. He turned straight back to the cabin and waited for the liner to arrive at Jingmen Island. Coming to Mist Source Island this time could be said to be a fruitful harvest. At least, he wouldn't have to worry about cultivation resources for a long time in the future. Even more so, he was confident that it wouldn't be long before he could break through again and reach a higher level. Furthermore, once his disciple, Gu Yin, recovered her strength, he would definitely be able to walk unhindered on Earth. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The liner stopped on the shore of Jingmen Island. Just as Tan Xiu came out of the cabin, he saw Gu Yin, standing gracefully on the shore. Her white dress fluttered in the wind, making her look like a pure and clean fairy maiden. Her breathtakingly beautiful face was full of excitement. Whoosh, a lightning-fast figure instantly rushed out from behind Tan Xiu. In almost the blink of an eye, Zhenlei Duomo appeared in front of Gu Yen. "You?" Zhenlei Duomo looked at Gu Yen'er in disbelief. Gu Yen'er's peerless appearance had long been engraved in her heart. But what she couldn't believe was that Gu Yen'er's appearance hadn't changed in the slightest after more than 20 years. She was still so beautiful and young. Gu Yen'er's eyes reluctantly moved away from Tan Xiu and fell on Zhenlei Duomo's face. She slightly froze for a moment before her eyes widened and said in surprise, "You're little Duomo?" Tears overflowed from Zhenlei Duomo's eyes. She bit her lower lip with her white teeth and said with a trembling voice, "It's really you. I'm not dreaming. You're still so young and beautiful. I didn't expect to see you again after so many years," Gu Yen said with a gratified smile. "You've grown up, little Duomo." Zhenlei Duomo's voice trembled. "You didn't let me come to China at that time. I've endured it countless times and dreamed to see you again. Can you let me call you mother? Because you're my mother in my heart. Mother? Guyen was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. She wasn't married, so how could she have a child? Besides, she had raised too many children, more than 100 in total. If everyone called her mother, wouldn't she become the woman with the most children? Call me master. Guyen subconsciously looked at Tan Xiu, who had already approached her, and then slowly said. She could have children, but her children must be her own, and the most important thing was to have children with him. Zhenlei Duomo knew what the word master meant, so she knelt in front of Guyen, without hesitation and kowtowed 3 times. Only then did she get up and said, Master, you won't abandon me again, right? I had something important to do back then, so I made up an excuse to leave you abroad. Guyen sighed. Later, because of my physical condition, I let you wander outside. But how did you come back with your Grand Master? Grand Master? Zhenlei Duomo looked at Tan Xiu and was surprised. Are you talking about him, Master? Don't be rude, little Duomo, said Guyen immediately. He's my master, so he's naturally your Grand Master. Zhenlei Duomo incredulously said, But Master, his age. I know I'm wrong. Grand Master. You want to ask me why I'm so young, right? Tan Xiu lightly smiled. I do look very young, but look at your master. Isn't she also very young? In fact, once a cultivator's cultivation reaches a high level, the changes in their appearance will slow down and they can even stay young forever. Zhenlei Duomo was shocked. As a woman, how could she not want to stay young forever? For a moment, her eyes were particularly bright. Guyen looked at Tan Xiu again. She gently walked a few steps and opened her arms to gently hug Tan Xiu, saying, Master, Yen misses you. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Yen, there are so many people watching. Besides, your disciple is also here. I've lived for thousands of years. What kind of things have I not experienced? Guyen gently shook her head. Master is the most important person in my heart. I miss you and I really miss you. I don't need to hide it in front of anyone. Chapter 757. Tan Xiu felt warm inwardly. He gently patted her back and smilingly said, Since you miss me, Master will stay on Jingmen Island for a while to accompany you. Let's go. Guyen released Tan Xiu and happily held Tan Xiu's arm. In her eyes, whether it was Zhenlei Duomo or the others she had trained, all of them were not as important as her master, Tan Xiu. The only reason why she could survive until now was because of Tan Xiu. 100 meters away, dozens of men and women in black suits and sunglasses stood in front of a row of black cars. Although there were a lot of onlookers around, they could only stop hundreds of meters away. Zhenlei Duomo followed behind Guyen and Tan Xiu. When she saw the dozens of people, she saw some familiar faces among them, causing her pupils to suddenly contract and her muscles to tense up. She was also a ruthless character who had gone through fire and water countless times abroad. She had fought with many people on the battlefield and climbed up from piles of corpses. Those familiar faces were similar to her. Each of them was a powerhouse who had survived from piles of corpses. However, she couldn't figure out why these people would appear here. Zhenlei Duomo slowed down her pace and asked in a low voice, Why are the Dark Knight Overlord, Bloodthirsty Viper, and Golden Bat here? Are they the same as you, people of the Everlasting Feast Hall? And all of them are cultivators? Well, there's no harm in telling you since you're already one of us, said Mo indifferently. They are indeed people of the Everlasting Feast Hall and core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Not only the 3 of them, but also the others. Zhenlei Duomo's body trembled and a horrified expression filled her eyes. She was originally surprised that the Everlasting Feast Hall only had 11 cultivators, including Mo, and all of them were Tan Xiu's men. Now, it seemed that he was ridiculously wrong. Just over 20 years ago, his master, Guyen, was already powerful and invincible, and belonged to the Everlasting Feast Hall. And now, dozens of powerful cultivators suddenly appeared. What kind of terrifying power did the Everlasting Feast Hall possess? Brother Aw, how many cultivators does the Everlasting Feast Hall have? Could it be that every one of them is as powerful as you? A smile outlined on the corner of Aw's mouth as he said, even I don't know how many cultivators the Everlasting Feast Hall has. Perhaps the person who knows it the best is Little Boss. However, Little Boss didn't seem to be here. But they should be here. Who are they? Junlei Duomo was confused. Your luck is very good, said Mo. We were all very envious that he was accepted as a disciple by the previous boss. They are your senior brothers and sisters. Do you see the only one wearing white clothes over there? He is light. Since he appeared here, darkness must be nearby. Are they very powerful? Junlei Duomo asked curiously. There's a big gap between us and them, said Mo seriously. Even you are far inferior to them. Junlei Duomo fell into silence. She was not an arrogant and conceited woman. On the contrary, she was very smart. Although she hadn't known Mo for a long time, she could see that he was not the kind of person who would talk nonsense. Since he could be sure that the other party was stronger than her, it was unlikely that he was wrong. The Everlasting Feast Hall. Junlei Duomo's expression was a bit complicated. She felt more and more that the Everlasting Feast Hall had a terrifying power that was unfathomable. However, the only fortunate thing was that she had successfully joined the Everlasting Feast Hall. Suddenly, she seemed to recall something and quickly asked, Brother All, when we were in Mist Source Island, Grand Master said that he would compensate Shui Gue with a year's worth of resources. How much money can the Everlasting Feast Hall give us a year? Money? Mo looked at her with a strange expression and said, money doesn't mean much to the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. It's actually very easy for us to get money if we want it. The Everlasting Feast Hall's resource allocation is, in fact, elixirs, weapons, magical techniques, and any other cultivation resources that are helpful to cultivators. If the Everlasting Feast Hall doesn't allocate these resources, it's impossible to buy them even if you have trillions of wealth. As for the quantity, it's not a lot. But if we buy them ourselves, we'll need about 1 billion. Aren't we not allowed to buy them? Asked Junlei Duomo, confused. Outsiders can't buy them, but our core members can, said Mo. It's just that the form of purchase is different. For example, elixirs that are helpful to cultivation. Refining elixirs requires a lot of medicinal herbs, so we can spend money to buy those herbs and exchange them for elixirs. Junlei Duomo immediately understood, but she still asked, elixirs are helpful to our cultivation? Let me give you an example. You've broken through to the foundation establishment stage, but you should still be at the early stage. The most suitable elixir for you now is the essence amassing pill, said Mo. Taking an essence amassing pill can reduce your cultivation time by about 5 years. In other words, if you want to break through from the early stage to the middle stage of foundation establishment stage, you'll need 10 years. But if you take an essence amassing pill, you'll only need 5 years to break through to the middle stage of foundation establishment stage. Gasp! Junlei Duomo sucked in a breath of cold air. She was shocked by Mo's description. This kind of elixir was the same as the legendary elixir from the East. Junlei Duomo quickly glanced at the indifferent expression on Shui Gui's face. Regret filled her heart. Had she known that the Everlasting Feast Hall would distribute such good resources, how could she have easily agreed to use a year's quota to resolve the enmity with Shui Gui? Jingmen Island, Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ. As soon as Tan Xiao got off the car, he smelled the fragrance of medicinal herbs in the air. He looked inside and curiously asked, is Ji Qimei refining elixirs? Ever since Xiao Xue came back from Mist Source Island with a lot of precious medicinal herbs, Elder Ji has been refining elixirs in her alchemy room. Gu Yenner chuckled. Originally, the number of elixirs in our treasure vault was very small, but it's now more than enough after she's been refining elixirs. I've seen those medicinal herbs, and their quality is very good. Even in the immortal world, there are several of them that are hard to get. Our Everlasting Feast Hall shouldn't be lacking elixirs in the next few years. That's good news, Tan Xiao nodded and smilingly said. Shortly after, the duo then chatted about a lot of topics, including Zhenlei Duomo's matter. When Gu Yin'er learned that Zhenlei Duomo had become the second in command of a foreign gang, she was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh. Master, Grandmaster. Dressed in a white dress, Gu Xiaoxue came before Gu Yin'er and Tan Xiao and respectfully greeted them. Xiaoxue, how's Elder Ji's elixir refining going? Asked Gu Yin'er with a smile. Has she refined the soul revolving pill that I asked her to? Gu Xiaoxue stretched out her hand and handed over a jade bottle. It's been refined, but the quantity is very small, only 2 in total. Elder Ji said that the medicinal herbs needed to refine the 9 Revolutions soul pill are too rare, so she can only refine these 2 at most. It's already a lot to be able to refine 2 of them, said Gu Yin'er with a satisfied smile. Master, take this 9 Revolutions soul pill as soon as possible. This 9 Revolutions soul pill will be very helpful to you given your current cultivation level. Tan Xiao took the jade bottle, unplugged the cork and sniffed it. He then nodded and praised, it's indeed the 9 Revolutions soul pill. Countless immortals in the immortal world want to get this kind of elixir, yet I didn't expect it to appear on Earth. However, I can't take it for the time being because my cultivation level is still too low. Taking this 9 Revolutions soul pill will not only bring me no benefits, but will also bring me some hidden dangers instead. Hidden dangers? Asked Gu Yin'er with a puzzled expression. If I take the 9 Revolutions soul pill now, I'll need to go into seclusion for at least several years to fully absorb its medicinal efficacy, said Tan Xiao with a wry smile. Else, my body may explode due to the huge medicinal efficacy it contains. Gu Yin'er stared blankly for a moment before she immediately understood and said, You haven't cultivated your golden core yet, Master. I really want to see you become stronger, so Tan Xiao interrupted her and said, My current cultivation path is different from ordinary cultivators. To be precise, I'm now a devil cultivator. Devil cultivator? But you don't have any devil chi on you, Master? Asked Gu Yin'er, puzzled. Do you still remember the heavenly art of cosmic genesis? Asked Tan Xiao lightly. Gu Yin'er's eyes widened and said, That made you change to another cultivation technique? I remember rumors saying that ordinary immortals can't cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, right? Cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis requires extremely harsh conditions. Tan Xiao nodded. And I happen to be suitable. If it were me in the past, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to cultivate it. Gu Yin'er suddenly understood and smilingly said, Master, if you change to another cultivation technique, I believe it will be much better than your previous one. Yin'er can't wait to see Master return to being a supreme in the immortal world again. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and no longer talked about this topic. Whether it was Tan Xiao or Gu Yin'er, they didn't plan to tell Zhenlei Duomo about the existence of the exquisite pagoda for the time being. As Zhenlei Duomo was arranged elsewhere, Tan Xiao and Gu Yin'er came to the exquisite pagoda. The days spent together as master and disciple were relaxed and happy. However, when a visiting card was sent to Tan Xiao's hand, Tan Xiao suddenly remembered something. He had yet to give Li Juren the medicinal pill he had promised him. He hadn't even refined it yet. Afterward, Tan Xiao entered Ji Qimei's alchemy room and began to crazily refine the medicinal pill. After the life essence pill was finished, Tan Xiao didn't go to see Li Juren but sent someone to deliver it to him. Just as Tan Xiao got a lot of money and was in a very good mood, a phone call came to his cell phone. See you tomorrow night in Jingmen Island. Chapter 758. A smile appeared on the corner of Tan Xiao's mouth as he hung up the phone. He had received a call from the old man on his way back from Mist Source Island, informing him that a special big shot wanted to see him. He didn't expect that the old man would call him now and suddenly want to meet him tomorrow. Others might not know the identity of that person, but he was very clear about it. He was someone who controlled a large number of ability users in the country. Although he didn't have a high and mighty identity on the surface, the power he had was not small. However, there was one thing he couldn't figure out. Why did he send a Chinese ability user to solve the problem of Miss Source Island? Tomorrow's meeting must not be at the Everlasting Feast Hall because its existence is still a secret to many people. Also, the old man should have received the news, but I don't know if he will come with me. Sure enough. A few minutes later, his mobile phone rang. It was a call from the old man, Tang Guosheng. The old man told him that he would accompany that big shot to Jingmen Island tomorrow and that he would stay at the Guomao Hotel. As for when he would meet him, he would wait for further notice. After the call, Tang Xiu put this matter to the back of his mind. He would deal with tomorrow's matter tomorrow. He still had a lot of precious medicinal herbs in his interspatial ring. Taking advantage of the time he had in Jingmen Island, he wanted to seize every minute and second to refine a batch of medicinal pills in case of emergency. The next evening, Tan Xiu was refining a furnace of essence amassing pills when Gu Xiaoxue hurriedly came in from the outside with his mobile phone and respectfully said, "Your grandfather is calling, Grandmaster." Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and said, "I'm at a critical moment in my alchemy, so it's not convenient for me to be distracted for the time being. Tell him to wait for me for 2 or 3 hours. I'll call him back after I'm done with my work." Understood. Gu Xiaoxue replied and turned to walk outside. Jingmen Island. Inside the presidential suite of the World Trade Hotel, Tang Guosheng hung up the phone with an embarrassed expression. He looked at Duanmu Lin, who was still in high spirits and had a ruddy complexion. He forced a smile and said, "That little bastard's wings have hardened. He doesn't even want to pick up my call in time. His grand-disciple just told me that he's at a critical moment in refining a furnace of medicinal pills. I'm afraid it will take him 2 or 3 hours to finish." Alchemy? Duanmu Lin's spirit was shaken, and he said without hesitation, "Refining pills is an important matter. Naturally, I can't easily disturb you. Let's just wait." Tang Guosheng looked puzzled and asked, "I really don't get it. Why did you come all the way to Jingmen Island? If you want to see him, tell him to go to the imperial capital." "I believe that if he knew that you were the one who asked him to go, he would definitely rush over without stopping." Duanmu Lin smiled and said, "I need to show my sincerity." "Sincerity? What do you mean?" Tang Guosheng asked again. Duanmu Lin smiled and said, "I met him personally because I wanted to ask for a pill." Tang Guosheng frowned and said, "Asking for pills? Do you still want to live forever?" Duanmu Lin shook his head and said, "I don't dare to think about immortality, but I can still live for a few more years." According to a reliable source, Old Man Li from Hong Kong had obtained 10 life essence pills. I heard from the old woman living in seclusion in the imperial capital that the life essence pill can increase one's lifespan. Even if one's lifespan is exhausted, it can still buy a few more years from the Grim Reaper. Although that old woman said that I can live for at least 10 more years, getting a life essence pill can be considered as a precaution. Tang Guosheng's complexion greatly changed. He never dreamed that his grandson could actually refine a life essence pill that could increase one's lifespan. Every moment in the country, there were old people passing away due to the exhaustion of their lifespan. Even big shots like him, who held great power, would not be an exception in the future. Suddenly, a strange light flashed in Tang Guosheng's eyes. No wonder this person spared no effort to rush all the way to Jingmen Island to see my grandson. It turns out that he has something to ask of me. Ha! This is great. Even if my precious grandson doesn't take this opportunity to fish for benefits, I believe this person will not treat him unfairly. Even my Tang family, Tang Guosheng, was very happy inwardly. If it weren't for this person in front of him, he would have looked up to the sky and laughed heartily. At midnight, Tan Xiu hurried to the World Trade Hotel. Although Duanmu Lin came quietly, the security was still very tight. After several identity checks and Duanmu Lin's order, Tan Xiu smoothly arrived at the presidential suite. "You brat, you're too good at putting on airs. Making us old people wait until now is really annoying." Although Tang Guosheng was very excited and satisfied to see his grandson, he still deliberately reprimanded him with a straight face. Duanmu Lin smiled and waved his hand. "Old Tang, it's good for young people to have some things to do. You don't need to lecture this kid. He's very good. He's really very good." The matter in Miss Source Island was solved very well. I was just organizing my words to praise him. A smile appeared on Tang Guixing's face as he pointed to Duanmu Lin and said, "This is Duanmu Lin. You can call him Grandpa Duanmu." Tan Xiu looked at Duanmu Lin and smilingly said, "Tan Xiu is flattered that you came to Jingmen Island from thousands of miles away. There are only a few people in the country who deserve my respect, but you're definitely one of them." Duanmu Lin smiled and said, "Not bad. I just found another good point of yours. You know how to flatter." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. He didn't have any restraint in front of Duanmu Lin. However, he was, after all, a big shot nowadays, so Tan Xiu didn't want to be too casual. He humbly said a few words and then asked, "You didn't come to Jingmen Island just to praise me, did you? Is there something else?" After Tan Xiu entered the room, Duanmu Lin smelled the herbal medicine scent coming from Tan Xiu's body. Therefore, it could be said that Tan Xiu was really concocting medicinal pills today. Facing Tan Xiu's inquiry, he didn't beat around the bush and said with a smile, "You're right. In fact, I came here to ask something from you personally." "What is it?" asked Tan Xiu. "One life essence pill," said Duanmu Lin. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "I didn't expect you to be so well informed. It seems that it was Li Juren who leaked it. I still have a few life essence pills here, but I prepared them for my loved ones. But since you asked, I'll give them to you first. After all, you've been working hard for the country." After saying that, Tan Xiu put his hand into his pocket and took out a jade bottle from his interspatial ring. He handed it to Duanmu Lin and continued, "This is the life essence pill. Taking one can increase your lifespan by 3 to 5 years." Duanmu Lin was shocked inwardly. He took the jade bottle with both hands and looked at it for a long time. Then, he said with satisfaction, "Everyone wants to live a few more years. Tan Xiu, you have a special identity, so I'm afraid you won't be interested in money. How about this? I'll give you an opportunity. Don't you cultivators always talk about opportunities?" Tan Xiu stared blankly and asked with a confused expression, "What kind of opportunity?" "A 3-star vestige," said Duanmu Lin slowly. "What's a 3-star vestige?" asked Tan Xiu. Duanmu Lin said, "Aliens once appeared on Earth. Although this is a very important secret, and very few people know about this information, you are not an outsider. I can responsibly tell you that some of the aliens came with malice, and some with kindness. According to the laws and regulations of the world, the vestige found by humans is divided into different grades. They are a 1-star vestige, a 2-star vestige, a 3-star vestige, a 4-star vestige, and a 5-star vestige. Even I have never heard of a 5-star vestige. 4-star vestige has appeared twice. The first one was in the Egyptian pyramids, and the second one was in the Bermuda Triangle. Every country has obtained a good harvest in these 2 vestige explorations. But the most important secret has never been cracked. In addition, due to special reasons, the exploration of the 2 vestige ended without a conclusion. A 3-star vestige is also a fatal temptation for every country. In the past 20 to 30 years, the science and technology of every country has developed rapidly, and there is no lack of technological products from the vestige. Even the M nation found a dilapidated alien spaceship in the Amazon rainforest, which eventually made the M nation's scientific and technological power advance by leaps and bounds, making it a powerful country in the world. As for the 2-star vestige and 1-star vestige, they are small ones. Some were left by the ancestors on Earth, and some were extraterrestrial vestige. So the gains gained by each country from them are not particularly big. As Duanmu Lin spoke up to this point, a bit of helplessness appeared in his eyes. He forced a smile and said, "Although I said I'm giving you an opportunity, I actually want you to contribute to the country. In the newly discovered 3-star vestige, you can get a lot of extraterrestrial technology to make our country more powerful." Tan Xiu had little interest in extraterrestrial technology. After all, he was an immortal cultivator. In the future, he would rely on his own strength to shatter the void, break the shackles of the heavenly way, and eventually ascend to become an immortal. However, after listening to Duanmu Lin's words, he still decided to go there. It was because he needed to make money now. If he could get extraterrestrial technology, he would be able to make a lot of money, which would help him greatly in terms of cultivation and resources in the future. Can you tell me about the newly discovered 3-star vestige? The location is in the Strait of Malacca, which is known as the crossroads of the sea, said Duanmu Lin. The Strait of Malacca runs from southeast to northwest. Its western section belongs to the Myanmar Sea, while its southeastern section is connected to the South China Sea. The entire strait is 1,080 kilometers long, with the southeastern strait connecting the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean. The newly discovered 3-star vestige is at this junction, and it's located at the bottom of the sea. What kind of people will be sent by each country to explore the 3-star vestige in such a place? Tan Xiu was surprised. For example, our country will at least send martial arts grandmasters and ability users there, said Duanmu Lin with a solemn expression. In fact, the number of people has already been assembled, and we're just waiting to arrive at the destination before May 1st. Other countries will also send a lot of people with special abilities. I don't know what kind of people will be sent this time, but I'm sure that none of them will be ordinary people. Chapter 759. After the brief meeting, Tan Xiu left the World Trade Hotel. Although Duanmu Lin didn't give Tan Xiu any substantial compensation, the quota for exploring the vestige still fell on Tan Xiu. There was still more than half a month before May 1st, so Tan Xiu wasn't in a hurry. He had almost solved the matter in Jingmen Island, except for staying a few more days to accompany Gu Yan, before he decided to return to Shanghai. In the night, the wide road was brightly illuminated by the street lights on both sides as 2 cars headed toward the Everlasting Feast Hall, one in front and one at the back. Sitting in the back seat of the car in front, Tan Xiu wore a smile on his handsome face as he recalled the scene of his meeting with Duanmu Lin and felt very satisfied. In the next few years, as long as Duanmu Lin and the ability users under his control didn't find trouble with him, the Tang family would be able to sit back and relax, and he wouldn't have to be afraid of doing things. Before going to Miss Source Island, Tan Xiu clearly remembered the promise made by that person, so he hadn't taken back the Green Book until now. Act first and report later. The power to kill. Tan Xiu's eyes swept outside the window. Although it was already late at night, there were still some cars passing by. Enjoying the tranquility inside the car, Tan Xiu finally felt a trace of tiredness after being busy for the past few days, causing him to fall asleep. Ring, ring, ring. After an unknown period of time, his cell phone suddenly rang. When Tan Xiu woke up from his sleep, he found that the car had returned to the Everlasting Feast Hall and was parked in the parking lot. He sat motionless in the driver's seat, while Jin Shi and the others were scattered around without disturbing him. "How long have I slept?" asked Tan Xiu while taking out his cell phone. Mo turned his head and said, "For hours. It's already 4:30 in the morning. I saw that you were sleeping soundly, so I took the liberty to not wake you up." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and looked at the caller ID. After finding that it was Shuiyu, he immediately answered and said, "Shuiyu, you didn't rest?" "Tan Xiu, I have something to tell you." "Speak." "I had a breakthrough in my cultivation last night, so I was struck by a whim to speculate your future and some people related to you," said Shuiyu. "In the end, you didn't manage to predict your future, but you discovered another situation. There's a person who I'm not sure is important to you, but he's going to face a bloody calamity soon. And I found out that she is now in the south." Tan Xiu was startled and hurriedly asked, "Who is it?" "I don't know who it is exactly." Shuiyu forced a wry smile and said, "Anyways, she's a woman. She should be in a critical situation right now. Her specific location is in the sea area near Jingmen Island." "That's right, thunder and lightning storm." There is indeed a thunder and lightning storm in the vicinity of Jingmen Island. She should be there. "Are there any other clues?" asked Tan Xiu. "Yes, but she's not a Chinese, and she's not even a pure human," said Shuiyu. "If you want to participate, you must be careful." Tan Xiu was stunned. He racked his brain but couldn't think of anyone who would be in danger. Not Chinese? Not human? Then who's this important to me? Tan Xiu thought about it and felt that Shuiyu wouldn't have deduced this matter for no reason. Therefore, he opened the door, looked at Mo, and said in a deep voice, "Immediately send someone to check where there is a thunder and lightning storm near Jingmen Island. Hurry up." Understood. Mo and the others scattered in all directions. A few minutes later, Mo hurried over with the Everlasting Feast Hall's intelligence personnel in Jingmen Island and told Tan Xiao an important news. Thunderstorms had appeared more than 180 nautical miles southeast of Jingmen Island, and the waves had reached 9 degrees. Contact the port and tell them to prepare the liner. We'll rush there immediately. Tan Xiao's face was a bit gloomy as he sat back in the car. Whoosh! A figure flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared in front of the car. Ji Qimei, who was leaning on her walking stick, transmitted her voice over, "Lord, this subordinate can follow you if there's an emergency." Tan Xiao stared blankly and immediately shook his head in annoyance. He then opened the door and came to Ji Qimei's front, saying in a deep voice, "Ji Qing, take me to the sea area southeast of Jingmen Island, about 180 nautical miles away. All of you stay here." Understood. Mo and the others knew how terrifying Ji Qimei was. Seeing her grab Tan Xiao's arm and soar into the sky, they all looked envious. Flying. They could do it, but it was far from being able to travel thousands of miles in a flash. If they were to fly in the air, they would only be able to maintain it for half an hour before their true essence would be completely consumed. Even flying on a flying sword would be less than an hour. In the blink of an eye, Tan Xiao and Ji Qimei had already appeared in the thunder and lightning storm, yet the harsh environment didn't affect them in the slightest. "What are we here for, Lord?" asked Ji Qimei curiously. "Release your spiritual sense and help me investigate the situation within a radius of 100 kilometers, said Tan Xiao in a deep voice. "I need to find a woman who's not from China. Forget it. Take a good look and see if there are any people within a radius of 100 kilometers. Ji Qimei respectfully nodded. Her spiritual sense continued to spread in all directions, and in the blink of an eye, it had already enveloped a radius of 100 kilometers. Let alone a person, even a fish or a drop of water could be clearly seen by her within this 100 kilometers range. There's a dilapidated fishing boat about 14 kilometers southeast of us. It's likely to be capsized by the waves at any time. In the southwest direction, there are 2 luxury liners. There are a total of 46 people on the 2 liners. One of them only has 1 man, and the rest are all women wearing revealing clothes. There's also a freighter northeast of us with 24 people on board. They're not Chinese, and the freighter also has firearms and other cold weapons. That's not right. There's a dilapidated fishing boat 14 kilometers southeast of us. It should be capsized in such a storm and swallowed by the Black Sea, right? How can it be safe and sound drifting around? Boss, the woman on that ship is also not Chinese. She has blonde hair and blue eyes, and she's injured. Head southeast, said Tan Xiao immediately. Understood. Ji Qimei didn't hesitate. Her figure flashed and suddenly appeared on the dilapidated fishing boat with Tan Xiao. When the 2 of them approached, a special energy fluctuation made Tan Xiao instantly understand Shui Yu's meaning. Shui Yu said that there was a foreign woman who was related to him, but she didn't say that she had a close relationship with him. Just this slight difference in meaning was enough to make Tan Xiao a bit more worried. Viviani. She used to be the Holy Virgin of the Holy Sea. She had a special power, but she didn't have much combat power. Even her character was very pure and kind. She once helped others and ended up with her family ruined, so much so that she didn't even know about it for a long time. If he hadn't seen her in the casino in Saipan and reminded her, she probably wouldn't have known about it until now. Boss, do you want to save her? Ji Qimei and Tan Xiao were standing on the deck, but their spiritual senses were shrouding Viviani in the cabin. The current Viviani was no longer the goddess she was when Tan Xiao first met her. She looked like a beggar in dire straits. No, she was even worse than a beggar. She was covered with scars. Apart from the clothes on her sensitive parts that were still intact, the rest of her body was in tatters. Wait a minute. Tan Xiao recalled Ji Qimei's words before, and a smile suddenly appeared on the corner of his mouth. He realized that it was not the storm that brought danger to Viviani, but the 24 people on the freighter northeast. He clearly remembered that Viviani left Saipan to seek revenge. But now, it seemed that she must have been hunted because of her hatred. Let's go. Let's not disturb her. Let's go to another room in the cabin and wait, whispered Tan Xiao. Ji Qimei nodded and quietly followed Tan Xiao to another room in the cabin. She sat cross-legged inside and used her spiritual sense to observe the outside. Venerable Lord, according to the sailing direction and speed of the freighter northeast, it should catch up with this fishing boat in 2 hours. However, the first to encounter this fishing boat should be those 2 liners, said Ji Qimei with a voice transmission. It's really strange that there are still idlers at sea in such bad weather, said Tan Xiao with a strange expression. Qimei, who are the people on those 2 liners? There are more than 20 men on one of the liners. They should be martial artists, said Ji Qi. But on the other liner, aside from the dozens of women, there's also a young man who looks like a playboy. He's seeking pleasure. Playboy? Seeking pleasure? Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he shook his head. As the saying goes, there are all kinds of birds in a big forest. Isn't that guy afraid that he'll lose his life in this vast sea if the storm level rises? Say, do you think that playboy is a Taoist cultivator? Or someone with some special ability? Otherwise, he should have urged the crew to leave the sea area and take refuge at Jingmen Island's port. Tan Xiao's expression moved as he hurriedly asked with a voice transmission. Ji Qimei shook her head and replied with a voice transmission, he shouldn't be a cultivator, nor does he have any special ability. According to my observation, he should be a martial artist. According to the martial artist classification on Earth, he should be a martial arts grandmaster. A young martial arts grandmaster? Tan Xiao squinted his eyes and searched his mind for this kind of person he was familiar with, but he couldn't find any. Immediately after, he didn't want to think about it anymore and quietly waited. Time fleeted by. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. As the fishing boat and the 2 liners got closer and closer, the sturdy man on one of the liners finally discovered the existence of the dilapidated fishing boat. Inform the boss that we've encountered a fishing boat. On the deck of the liner, a burly man wearing a raincoat and holding a pair of binoculars ordered several people behind him. Understood. One of them replied and immediately returned to the cabin. Chapter 760. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Heavy rain poured down, and the sea breeze set off huge waves. Despite the terrible weather, the 2 liners were still sailing slowly. Inside the luxuriously decorated cabin of the Seagull liner, Wang Rui was surrounded by a group of sexy girls in revealing clothes. At this moment, he hugged them left and right, and from time to time he also accepted the kisses of these beauties. Glasses of champagne exuded a blurred halo under the illumination of the colorful lights, while the plates of fruits were crystal clear, sweet to everyone's taste buds. Ding, 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 the walkie-talkie in the cabin suddenly rang. Wang Rui raised his brows and waved to the girl in a swimsuit beside him. The girl immediately took the walkie-talkie and turned it on. What's up? A deep and low voice came from the walkie-talkie. We found a fishing boat nearby, boss. It's very strange. Strange? Wang Rui was surprised. How strange. The voice came from the walkie-talkie again. That fishing boat is very small and can only accommodate a dozen people at most. It's at least 3 times smaller than our liner. The wind and waves on the sea are very strong, and the weather is very bad. Even a passenger ship like ours can encounter problems when sailing on the sea, but that fishing boat is safe and sound. When it doesn't start sailing, it still floats on the sea. Wang Rui pushed the girl aside, stood up and said, I'm coming out to have a look. He put on his clothes and took a raincoat from the girl. After coming out of the cabin, he went straight to the deck. As the other liner approached, a burly man dashed forward and instantly leaped more than 10 meters away and landed beside Wang Rui. Bus. It's that fishing boat. I've observed it. There seems to be no one on it except for a few faint lights, said the burly man as he handed over a pair of binoculars. Wang Rui looked through the binoculars for a few minutes and finally nodded. There's indeed a problem. Let's go there and have a look. Hopefully we can encounter something fun. 6 or 7 minutes later, The two liners were only tens of meters away from the fishing boat. 4 middle-aged men used their hooks to shoot out ropes, and 2 of them successfully hooked the fishing boat. The fishing boat gradually approached the liner under the pull of the ropes. Bang! Suddenly, a gunshot was heard. Viviani walked out of the cabin with a pistol in her hand. Her hair was disheveled and her clothes were ragged. Her muzzle was pointed at the sky, but her murderous aura dispersed toward Wang Rui and the others on the liner. Wang Rui's expression changed. The burly man instantly stood in front of him. He took a deep breath and looked at Viviani under the bright daylight as lightning streaked across the sky. 10 seconds later, he gently pushed away the burly man in front of him, stood on the deck and shouted, "Hey, who are you? Aren't you afraid that the fishing boat will capsize in such a big storm?" Viviani had already sunk into despair. She was riddled with scars and exhausted. Even the energy within her body had been completely consumed. For more than half a month, she had been on the run. Even when she took the opportunity to rest and recover, it was still not as fast as the consumption. Encountering a storm, she used her own ability to control the fishing boat and barely drifted in the waves, and now was the moment when she was at the end of her strength. "Who are you people?" Viviani's voice was a bit hoarse. The wound on the left side of her neck had affected her normal pronunciation. It was the result of her damaged vocal cords. "We're Chinese and they're my men," said Wang Rui aloud. "We thought the weather was good, so we came to the sea to play. We didn't expect to encounter a storm, so we're about to return to Jingmen Island. Are you in trouble, miss?" Viviani took a deep breath. Though she really wanted to get help, she was well aware of the crisis she was facing. Based on her experience in the past half a month, she could infer that her enemies must be in the vicinity of this sea area. If she were to get help from them, it would very likely bring disaster to them. "I don't need help. Please go away." Viviani stabilized her body and walked step by step to the side of the ship. 2 shots were fired and 2 ropes were accurately hit by the bullets, breaking them. "Good marksmanship." Wang Rui's eyes lit up as he applauded and said, "Miss, your marksmanship is amazing. The sky has just turned bright, but it's still a bit dark for an ordinary person. But you were able to directly shoot the ropes. That's really admirable. Judging from your appearance, you should be injured, right? I have a medical kit on this liner with all kinds of medicines inside. I think you'll need them." Viviani fell into silence. She indeed needed medicine to treat herself. But she was afraid of bringing trouble to the other party, so she was at a loss for what to do for a while. "Use the hook gun." Wang Rui was keenly aware of Viviani's hesitation and immediately ordered. As the hook gun was fired, it hooked the fishing boat where Viviani was. 7 or 8 stalwart men pulled the fishing boat and the liner that had stopped sailing. Wang Rui raised his hands, indicating that he was not in danger. He then jumped to the deck of the fishing boat and smilingly said, "There's an old saying in Huaxia that it's fate that we meet. Since we are able to meet in this kind of bad weather, on this vast sea, this is a great fate. How should I address you, miss?" Viviani's expression suddenly changed. She instantly retreated more than a meter and vigilantly said, "I know you." Wang Rui stared blankly and carefully observed Viviani's face. He faintly felt that Viviani was indeed somewhat familiar, but her face was pale and dirty, so he couldn't see her face clearly. So he asked, "I'm not sure if I know you, Mississippi. My name is Wang Rui. Can you introduce yourself?" Viviani. Ugh. Wang Rui suddenly recalled an exotic and stunning face. Back when he was in Saipan, he once met a woman on the gambling table. Her name was Viviani, and the appearance of that Viviani and this woman in front of him didn't seem to have much difference. "How come it's you? How did you?" Wang Rui looked at Viviani incredulously and asked. After all, the woman in front of him and the one he saw before were like clouds and mud. Viviani was silent for about half a minute before she slowly said, "I ran into an enemy, so I'm a bit embarrassed. Mr. Wang, can you give me some medicine? I'm a bit injured and need to be treated promptly. You can rest assured that I won't implicate you. I'll leave immediately after I get the medicine." "Miss Viviani, I just told you that it was fate that brought us together." Wang Rui shook his head. We're at sea and the climate here is very bad. I'm sure you don't just need medicine. Come with me to our liner. You can take a comfortable bath and wear some clean ladies' clothes. Then you can take the time to deal with your injuries. As for your enemy, I don't think they can chase you here. Even if they do, I'm sure I can help you deal with them. A mocking smile appeared on Viviani's face. She shook her head and sighed. You have no idea what kind of people my enemy is, Mr. Wang. I really don't want to implicate you, so please give me some medicine. Also, you can give me your contact number. I'll repay you 100 times later if I can escape to a safe place alive. Wang Rui felt a bit uncomfortable inside. He felt that he was being looked down upon. In a flash, a surging aura was released from his body as he said in a deep voice, Miss Viviani, we Chinese people have always been very modest. There's an old saying that goes, if you don't have a diamond, don't do porcelain work. Since I dare to tell you that I can guarantee your safety, you don't need to worry about implicating us. Viviani wanted to say something more, but Wang Rui had already strode toward her. He maintained his gentlemanly demeanor and gestured for her to enter. Fearing that Viviani would continue to refuse, he said with all seriousness, I don't think the noble and holy Miss Viviani will refuse someone's kindness in a time of crisis. Viviani forced a smile inwardly. Thinking that her enemies might not be able to catch up with her in a short time, she finally chose to believe Wang Rui. After boarding one of the liners, her sharp eyes swept over more than 20 stalwart men before they finally entered the cabin. Viviani didn't expect that she would see such an unbearable scene. More than a dozen women in the cabin were exposed one by one. After Wang Rui entered the cabin, they swarmed around him like flies, showing off their coquettishness and flattering Wang Rui. Wang Rui let out an indifferent smile and slapped the buttocks of a blonde woman. Then, he said with a smile, go find a new set of clean clothes. I think Miss Viviani will need them. Also, take her to wipe her body and treat her wounds. Then take her to wear the new clothes. All right. The blonde woman was a bit reluctant, but she still managed to deal with it. After she took Viviani to another cabin, the previous stalwart man came to Wang Rui's front and reported in a low voice, I've checked. There's no one else in that fishing boat except for that woman. We found traces of fighting in that fishing boat, but there's nothing special about it. Wang Rui nodded and said, be vigilant. Since Viviani is worried about implicating us, it means that her crisis has not been resolved yet. Maybe some people will come here and have some unpleasant encounters with us. Half an hour later, Viviani's wounds were treated. She also wiped her body and changed into clean clothes. When she reappeared in front of Wang Rui, despite being accustomed to seeing beauties, Wang Rui was still impressed by Viviani's beauty. He sighed from the bottom of his heart and said, Miss Viviani is so beautiful, just like when we first met in Saipan. It's really a small world. I didn't expect that we would meet again here and under such circumstances. Viviani slightly nodded and said, thank you, Mr. Wang. I'll keep today's kindness in my heart. But I can't stay here for long. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Chapter 761. Viviani was not a kind-hearted person, especially in recent times. It could be said that her hands were stained with blood. But sometimes after the slaughter, she would be shocked by the tragic scene after the battle, and she would be scared to the point of being drenched in cold sweat even in her sleep. She used to be a saintess in the hearts of countless people. She used to be worshipped by countless people. After learning the pure kindness education of the God of Light, her whole heart was purified, and her nature was definitely good. Therefore, she didn't want to accept Wang Rui's good intentions. She didn't want to implicate innocent people, even if Wang Rui was not an ordinary person. My enemies are more powerful than you can imagine. I'm guessing that they should be nearby, so I can't implicate you. I'm already very grateful to you for these medicines. After saying that, Viviani turned around and was about to leave. Wang Rui strode forward to block in front of Viviani. With a firm and overbearing tone, he said in a deep voice, I might have let you leave if you weren't injured. But with your current condition, I'm afraid you'll die once you encounter those enemies. Your enemies may be very powerful, But we're not vegetarians. I'm very bored right now, so I'm more than willing to have some fun. Of course, we can leave here immediately if you don't feel at ease. I'll take you to Jingmen Island to take shelter. Viviani's heart was moved. She was very willing to hide in Jingmen Island because she remembered someone who might be able to help her. Are we going to Jingmen Island now? After pondering for a moment, Viviani asked with a bit of expectation in her eyes. No problem. We can go now. Wang Rui nodded. Wang Rui's men took off the hook gun's rope and abandoned the fishing boat in the vast sea. The two liners braved the wind and waves as they sailed toward Jingmen Island. Although the wind and waves were getting stronger, it didn't cause much damage to the two liners. A glass of red wine was placed in front of Viviani by Wang Rui. He then sat back on the soft sofa and let the girls around him surround him. However, the current Wang Rui didn't have the same playful feeling he had before. Compared to Viviani, the women around him were simply inferior. Be it in appearance or temperament, they were like the clouds and mud. F Country's Bordeaux red wine, brewed by the top red wine villa, has been preserved for 22 years. Be it the color or the taste, they were definitely top-notch. Have a taste. This red wine has a good effect on women's beauty. Wang Rui said with a smile. Thank you. Viviani did not pick up the glass of red wine, nor did she taste any of the fruits and pastries on the table. She was somewhat vigilant about encountering Wang Rui at sea. After all, the climate here was too harsh, and it was very abnormal for Wang Rui to seek pleasure here. At the bow of the liner, the burly man stood straight like a javelin, his cold eyes looking at the surrounding sea. As the sky grew brighter and brighter, it was already daytime. However, what made him a little nervous was that not only did the wind and waves not weaken, they became even stronger. Even the scene of lightning and thunder showed signs of strengthening. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly, and his cold eyes focused. After locking his gaze on the black dot on the distant sea, he immediately grabbed his binoculars and looked in that direction. Cargo ship. The burly man recalled what Viviani had said to Wang Rui before and immediately became vigilant. He beckoned a middle-aged man and gave him the binoculars. After giving him some instructions, he hurriedly entered the cabin. After Viviani came to Wang Rui's liner, he and the other two guards did not return to the other liner. Although Wang Rui was very strong, he was still a bit worried. Boss, there seems to be some trouble. Wang Rui raised his brows and asked, What trouble? Is the storm more violent than before? Or are Miss Viviani's enemies chasing us? There's a medium-sized cargo ship a few nautical miles away from us, said the burly man. I've observed it with my binoculars. Some people on that cargo ship are armed with guns, even heavy machine guns with heavy firepower. When I discovered them, they should have discovered us in advance, and according to my observation, that medium-sized cargo ship is sailing in the direction of us. Wang Rui turned to look at Viviani and asked, Can you tell me the origin of your enemies in advance? Don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to pry into your privacy. But if those people are really your enemies, I'm afraid we won't be able to hide from them. There's an old saying in Huaxia, know your enemy and know yourself, and you'll be victorious in every battle. I want to know my enemies so that I can deal with them more easily. Viviani directly got up from the sofa. The redness on her beautiful face turned a bit paler and a bit of despair could be seen in her eyes. Underworld forces, savage mammoth, she said bitterly. Wang Rui turned to look at the burly man and found that his complexion greatly changed. He immediately frowned and asked, Do you know these people Miss Viviani just mentioned? The burly man nodded bitterly and said, Savage Mammoth is the name of a very powerful organization. It's absolutely terrifying in Europe. I've dealt with Savage Mammoth's people before. Those people are lunatics. They are crazy to themselves and their enemies. Strictly speaking, they're not even human beings. Tell me the specifics, said Wang Rui. The burly man said, Savage Mammoth was originally a small force. Their business mainly relied on firearms and drugs. But more than a decade ago, this organization secretly developed a drug that can integrate the blood of wild beasts into the human body, thus causing a mutation in the human body. This drug is very dangerous. For example, only 2 out of 10 people can survive after taking it. But those who survive will have some kind of animal ability. I once met 2 savage mammoth people. They were injected with ant genes, so their power can be said to be terrifying. It's already very terrifying for an ordinary person to lift a few hundred pounds of things, but those 2 people can easily lift a 2 to 3 ton car. Therefore, the Savage Mammoth Organization continued to expand and absorb new blood in just a decade. Eventually, it formed a very huge force. Outsiders only know that there are 3 terrifying forces in the world, namely the Pyramid, the Crusader Consortium, and the Stygian Club. But only a few people know about the Savage Mammoth Organization. Of course, the Savage Mammoth Organization is obviously much weaker compared to these 3 forces, but it's not an organization that ordinary forces can afford to provoke. The meaning behind his last sentence was very obvious. He hoped that Wang Rui wouldn't get involved in this matter. He knew very well that even Wang Rui couldn't afford to provoke the Savage Mammoth Organization. Wang Rui frowned and felt that the situation was a bit tricky. However, he had promised Viviani that he would protect her and even get rid of those who were after her. If he were to go back on his word now, it would be really shameful for him. Wang Rui thought for a moment and suddenly said, "Savage Mammoth Organization is very powerful, but it's only in Europe. This is China's sea area. Don't tell me that all the Savage Mammoth people are coming here? It won't be a big problem as long as we don't have to face the entire Savage Mammoth Organization for the time being. Notify everyone to immediately issue a warning if the enemy approaches. If they don't listen, then get ready to fight." Viviani was keenly aware of Wang Rui's hesitation. Although he seemed to have made up his mind, she was still somewhat worried. After a few seconds of silence, she asked, "Do you have a speedboat on your liner?" Wang Rui nodded. "Can you give me a speedboat?" "I'll drive it alone, Mr. Wang," said Viviani. "Mr. Wang, the Savage Mammoth Organization has sent a lot of experts. I've spent a lot of effort, but I still can't shake them off. I really can't drag you down with me." Wang Rui raised his hand and was about to speak, but an angry roar outside the cabin made him swallow back the words he wanted to say. "Bastard! Go to hell!" At the bow of the ship, 2 dripping wet foreign youths were besieging one of Wang Rui's men with a dagger. The other man's neck had been torn open, and he was twitching and falling to the ground. Whoosh! The burly man dashed out of the cabin like lightning. When he appeared on the bow of the ship, he instantly pulled out a Mitsubishi Army knife from his waist and pounced on the 2 drenched foreign youths like a ferocious tiger. His speed was very fast and his strength was very powerful. At least, he had reached the level of a martial arts grandmaster. In just 2 breaths, the Mitsubishi Army knife in his hand had pierced the back of one of the foreign youths. "Retreat!" The injured foreign youth shouted in YDL language. In a flash, the 2 of them jumped into the sea below without hesitation. The burly man and another middle-aged man stood on the side of the ship, watching the 2 foreign youths disappear in the sea. Killing intent was faintly discernible in their eyes. After Wang Rui arrived, he immediately checked the man who fell to the ground, only to find that the man's twitching had weakened and he gradually stopped breathing. Savage Mammoth, damn it. Wang Rui got up and tightly clenched his fists. He was now sure that even if Viviani was not here, the Savage Mammoth Organization's people wouldn't have any good intentions. After all, they brazenly sent people to attack Viviani before they could figure out that she was on their ship. Viviani quietly came behind Wang Rui. Her eyes swept over the dead body and apologetically said, "I'm sorry. I'm the one who implicated your men. They shouldn't know that you're here." Wang Rui shook his head and said, "So they didn't attack my men because of you. Savage Mammoth's people are very powerful. They can quietly swim from the bottom of the sea in this stormy weather and attack my men without anyone noticing. It seems that the battle will be very fierce." Chapter 762. At a height of several hundred meters, Ji Qimei had released her domain and shrunk it to a radius of several hundred meters. Despite the rolling thunder and torrential rain in the heavenly mountain, it still couldn't pose any threat to her and Tan Xiu. It seems they're in trouble. Ji Chime indifferently looked at the scene below, and her voice was as cold as a stream of wind. In her view, those people below were just like ants. She wouldn't even want to stay here and waste her time if it wasn't for her lord's concern. Encountering more troubles is a good thing, said Tan Xiao indifferently. If it's always smooth sailing, then there's no way to be reborn through tempering. You're from the immortal world, so you should have heard the story of the pure young immortal, right? He grew up under the wings of a goshawk and has never encountered any wind or waves. Even with countless resources and supreme immortal records, he has even reached the perfected golden immortal level. But the result? He was killed by a newcomer who just ascended to the immortal world not long ago, and eventually became the laughingstock of hundreds of millions of immortals in the immortal world. Ji Chime nodded in agreement and said, "You're right. Flowers in a greenhouse can never be compared to weeds that have endured the endless years of wind and rain. If I may be so bold as to ask, is the girl named Viviani one of us?" Tan Xiao shook his head indifferently. He also couldn't figure out why Shuiyu was able to deduce something related to him. How come she was able to deduce Viviani? He only met her once and they didn't even have any friendship. Even if she was killed in front of him, it had nothing to do with him, right? Of course. This was also the reason why he didn't immediately appear in front of Viviani after he and Ji Chime arrived here and discovered Viviani. He wanted to figure out the truth and figure out what exactly happened to Viviani that made her look so miserable. "Ji Chime, do you know much about the White Wing clan?" Tan Xiao suddenly turned his head and asked. The White Wing clan is just one of the hundreds of millions of races in the immortal world. Ji Chime nodded and said, "Moreover, this clan is very sad. Since their birth, they've faced the eyes of countless races, especially their women. Each and every one of them is a stunningly beautiful stunner and a plaything in the eyes of countless immortal world powerhouses. The cultivation system of this clan is incomplete, and it's even more difficult for them to practice ordinary martial arts in the immortal world. Even after tens of thousands of years, no one from the White Wing clan has a very strong power." Tan Xiao nodded. "I suspect that Viviani has the bloodline of the White Wing clan. However, I don't understand why someone with the White Wings clan's bloodline would appear on Earth." Ji Chime was startled and then said in surprise, "I just recalled a rumor." Although the White Wings clan had never produced a powerful immortal, they did have a highly intelligent clansman. Her name was Boromyvian. She had once proposed a theory within her race. Descending to a lower realm and merging her bloodline with a mortal's body would allow her to have both the bloodline of the human race and the White Wings clan. If Viviani really has the bloodline of the White Wing clan, it's very likely that she's the product of this conclusion. Isn't this too absurd? Tan Xiao frowned. If an immortal wants to descend to an ordinary plane, even if it's a low-level plane, it's not allowed. Unless their strength breaks through to the perfected golden immortal stage, it's very difficult for them to descend. Immortals who have reached the perfected golden immortal stage are already very powerful. It shouldn't be difficult for them to shelter a weak race. I don't know about this. Ji Chime shook her head. Tan Xiao shook his head and shook off the confusion in his mind. His eyes then landed on the ships below. On the bow of the liner. Viviani didn't relax because of Wang Rui's stubbornness. Instead, it made her more worried. She didn't want to confront the savage mammoths people head-on because she was perfectly aware that fighting them head-on was tantamount to striking a stone with an egg. She wanted Wang Rui to leave with his people, while she only needed a speedboat to escape in time. But the Wang Rui before her was too arrogant and stubborn. The distance between the liner and the cargo ship kept getting closer. At this moment, Wang Rui and Viviani could clearly see dozens of fully armed men and women on the cargo ship. They even saw a silver-haired old man standing proudly with his hands behind his back on the bow of the cargo ship. "We're in trouble." The burly man standing next to Wang Rui had a clear look at the silver-haired old man's appearance. His heart thumped and a chill emerged inside him. "What kind of trouble?" asked Wang Rui with a frown. "We're in big trouble, boss," said the burly man bitterly. "That old geezer is a very powerful figure in the savage mammoth. He's similar to the law enforcement hall master of our country's ancient gangs. Rumors say that he's very terrifying, but nobody has ever seen him in action because those who have seen him in action are all dead. Aside from the mysterious leader of the savage mammoth, this old geezer is probably the most terrifying one in this organization. Don't boost the momentum of others and belittle our own. Wang Rui coldly snorted. I've broken through to the martial arts grandmaster realm, and you're just a step away from reaching a higher level. Even if it's only the two of us, I'm sure we can exterminate them. Besides, don't forget that there's a non-human among the people who came with us this time. The burly man subconsciously glanced at the cabin of the other liner, and his tense mood eased a lot. He naturally knew who the non-human Wang Rui was talking about was. He was one of the top powerhouses in Qingqing Mountain. Quickly, the distance between the two liners and the cargo ship was less than 100 meters. As both sides stopped, the silver-haired old man standing on the bow of the cargo ship shouted in fluent English, "I don't care who you are. Immediately give up resistance and accept our inspection. We're chasing an enemy, and anyone who dares to harbor our enemy is our enemy." Wang Rui was secretly startled by the silver-haired old man's loud voice, but he still calmed his mind and shouted, "You savage mammoth people are quite arrogant. How dare you be so domineering in our country's turf? Aren't you afraid that you'll all die in this sea?" The silver-haired old man burst into laughter and said, "Arrogant? Domineering? I've always been like this. I can twist your heads and dig out your hearts if you don't accept it. Ha! Don't make me say it again. Immediately give up resistance and squat at the bow with your hands on your heads. I can spare your lowly lives if I'm in a good mood." Wang Rui coldly turned his head and issued an order, "Get close and board their cargo ship to kill them all. Anyone who dares to threaten me must die." Half a minute later, the distance between the two liners and the cargo ship was less than 20 meters. Just as Wang Rui's more than 20 subordinates were ready to board the cargo ship and carry out a one-sided massacre, 4 ghostly figures suddenly sprinted over. The distance of nearly 20 meters was covered by them in just a dash. For sabers. For sharp and murderous long sabers fiercely slashed toward Wang Rui. Their speed was even faster than Wang Rui's evasion speed. "Fuck off." The burly man instantly shot out the dagger in his hand and forcibly blocked a long saber. At the same time, a hazy shadow shot over from a distance. It was a heavy spear that was instantly grabbed by the burly man. His surging momentum continued to rise as the long spear turned into a spear shadow that directly blocked all the attacks for Wang Rui. "Human ladder bridge." The silver-haired old man shouted in a deep voice at the bow of the cargo ship. Immediately, 12 men in black robes, whose foreheads were covered by the brim of their black hoods, leaped towards the liner. One of them rushed out while the other flew up and instantly stepped on his leg. The moment he was about to fall, the others sprinted again and even used their corpses to provide leverage for the other party to continue sprinting. The artistic human ladder bridge had a very perfect leverage effect. The 12 men in black robes had already sprinted to the deck of the liner in just a few breaths. As their black robes exploded, sharp long sabers were drawn from their backs and frantically tangled with Wang Rui's men. Roar! Suddenly, a man with green eyes let out an inhuman roar. His nails began to grow crazily, and a dense layer of fluff appeared on his body. Originally, he only had the strength of a martial arts master, but his speed suddenly soared several times. His feet landed on the ground and his body sprinted toward one of Wang Rui's men like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. His sharp nails swept through the man's neck and killed him with one blow. Hiss! A layer of dense scales suddenly appeared on the other man's body. His body also changed. It was as if all the bones in his body had been pulled out. His whole body became extremely soft, like a willow swaying in the wind. He constantly circled around Wang Rui's men and attacked them. Sharp fangs grew rapidly in the man's mouth. He was full of sharp aura and directly killed another of Wang Rui's men in a swift and violent attack. Poisonous fog. The silver-haired old man on the cargo ship seemed to be very dissatisfied with the battle situation in front of him. After several of Wang Rui's men were killed, he shouted loudly. In an instant, The 16 savage mammoth powerhouses who landed on the liner grabbed a porcelain bottle. As the porcelain bottle's cap was pulled off, a pale green smoke billowed out and dispersed in all directions under the strong wind. Wang Rui's complexion changed and he shouted, "Be careful! The fog is poisonous." The moment the other party released the poisonous fog, the burly man seized the opportunity to stab an enemy's abdomen with his spear. Just when he wanted to directly kill the other party, a shuttle instantly penetrated his chest along the spear's shaft. Puff! Blood spurted out and the burly man's body violently trembled a few times before he softly fell to the ground. "Bastard!" Wang Rui roared and forced the enemy in front of him to retreat. He then flashed and appeared in front of the burly man. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that his most capable subordinate, who was even more powerful than him, would actually be struck down by the enemy at this moment. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.